Florida, a land of warmth, waves, and endless coastlines. But when the sun slips beneath the horizon and the last gull fades into twilight, a different kind of light awakens, the kind that doesn't come from ships or stars. Along the edges of this peninsula, where storms brew without warning and fog rolls in like a ghostly curtain, stand lighthouses that have watched centuries pass. They've seen shipwrecks, disappearances, keepers gone mad, and lights that refuse to go out, even after death. Tonight, we'll journey through 25 haunted lighthouses of Florida, where mysterious lights still flicker, and the dead continue their watch long after the sea has claimed their souls. The St. Augustine Lighthouse, perched on the northeastern coast of Florida, is more than just a beacon for sailors. It is a monument to tragedy, devotion, and the restless spirits of the past. Towering over the Atlantic, its stark white walls and spiraling stairs make it an iconic landmark, drawing thousands of tourists each year. But for all its picturesque charm, the lighthouse carries a reputation darker than its sun-drenched facade suggests. Generations of visitors and locals alike have reported unexplained phenomena. From fleeting shadows and ghostly figures to the echo of laughter and the steady presence of a man who never left his post. Constructed in the late 19th century, the lighthouse was intended to guide ships safely along the treacherous St. Augustine coastline. Its light, visible for miles, became a symbol of hope and security for sailors braving the Atlantic's unpredictable waves. But the lighthouse was not without its tragedies. Over the decades, several keepers lost their lives while tending to the light or navigating the dangers surrounding the tower. Among them, one keeper stands out in local lore, man known simply as Captain John, whose devotion to the lighthouse was legendary. Captain John was said to be inseparable from the tower. He maintained the light tirelessly, climbing the 219 steps of the spiral staircase daily, ensuring the bulb burned bright and the beacon swept the horizon without fail. Those who knew him described a man consumed by duty, one whose dedication bordered on obsession. He would often tell visitors that the sea itself was unforgiving, and that one lapse could mean disaster for the ships, depending on his light. And indeed, history would record that John's vigilance saved countless lives. Yet, his dedication came at a cost. During a particularly violent storm, Captain John fell while attempting to repair damage to the lantern room. His death was sudden, shocking the local community. Grieving but determined to honor his legacy, the lighthouse continued to operate, though the memory of John's steadfast presence lingered in every corner of the tower. It is this lingering presence that many believe persists today, watching over the lighthouse even in death. Visitors report the first signs of the haunting almost immediately upon entering the tower. As they climb the narrow spiral stairs, faint sounds of children's laughter can be heard echoing upwards, seemingly coming from nowhere. The laughter is high-pitched, innocent, yet strangely out of place, reverberating off the stone walls in a way that sends shivers down the spine. Some interpret it as the echoes of the keeper's own children, or perhaps children of the sea, spirits drawn to the tower's enduring light. Others insist it is a residual memory of those who perished along the treacherous coastline, forever entwined with the lighthouse. Shadows are another common phenomenon reported by those ascending the tower. Tourists and staff alike have glimpsed figures darting across landings, disappearing when approached. Some shadows are fleeting, a dark shape against the white walls, while others seem almost tangible, hovering just long enough to be noticed, leaving a lingering sense of unease. These sightings are often accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, a cold that seeps into the bones, despite the Florida sun outside. The lantern room, the very heart of the lighthouse, is where Captain John's presence is most strongly felt. Visitors report seeing a figure standing vigil near the enormous Fresnel lens, as if continuing the duty he cherished in life. He is described as wearing the uniform of a lighthouse keeper from decades past, his gaze fixed on the horizon, hands gripping the railing as if scanning for incoming ships. Some claim he moves slightly when approached, yet disappears when anyone reaches the top, leaving only the faint impression of his presence and the lingering scent of tobacco and sea air. Even when the lighthouse is officially dark, locals say the beam still flickers, slicing across the water as if performing its eternal duty. Boaters have reported glimpsing the light from miles away, only to discover that the tower itself has no functioning bulb at the time. Others hear the soft creak of the spiral staircase at night, the same rhythmic sound Captain John would have made while ascending and descending to check the lantern. Audio recordings occasionally pick up whispers in the wind, words too faint to interpret, though some swear they hear phrases like, "Steady," "Watch the sea," "Keep them safe." The lighthouse grounds also hold their own spectral stories. Visitors have reported figures moving along the shoreline near the lighthouse, sometimes glimpsed in the early morning fog, other times silhouetted against the sunset. Some witnesses describe fleeting glimpses of children playing among the dunes, their laughter trailing behind them before vanishing into the sand and surf. Others hear the muffled sound of a bell tolling, though no bell exists, as if the tower itself mourns and remembers those lost to the ocean. The haunting extends beyond sensory phenomena. Many visitors report an unsettling sense of being watched while in the lighthouse. Cameras malfunction inexplicably, lights flicker with no electrical cause, and small objects are sometimes found moved from their original positions. In one particularly well-documented incident, a visitor captured a photo of the lantern room at dusk, only to discover a figure standing inside the glass enclosure, an impossibly detailed apparition of a man in old-fashioned garb staring out to sea with a hauntingly solemn expression. Local lore has intertwined the lighthouse with tales of heroism, love, and death, creating a tapestry that continues to draw the curious and the brave. Ghost tours frequently recount the stories of Captain John, the spectral children, and the mysterious flickering light, attracting visitors who hope to catch a glimpse of the supernatural. Yet those who have experienced the phenomena firsthand often leave with more questions than answers. Haunted not by fear alone, but by the profound sense of devotion and loss that permeates the lighthouse. The St. Augustine Lighthouse stands as a beacon in every sense, not only for those navigating the treacherous waters off Florida's coast, but for the spirits whose stories are bound to it. It is a place where the past refuses to be silent, where the laughter of children and the gaze of a devoted keeper echo through the stone walls, and where the light, even when extinguished, continues to sweep across the sea. Visitors who ascend its spiral stairs, linger in the lantern room, or stand on the windswept grounds feel the weight of history pressing down. A chilling, yet mesmerizing reminder that some duties are never truly abandoned, even by death itself. The Pensacola Lighthouse, standing tall since 1859 on the Florida Panhandle, has long been a symbol of safety and guidance for sailors navigating the treacherous waters of Pensacola Bay. Its black and white, striped exterior rises boldly against the sky, a beacon of hope amid storms and fog. Yet, while the lighthouse once guided countless ships to safety, it has also become a guide of a different kind, a sentinel for the restless dead. Stories of unexplained phenomena, ghostly figures, and a mysterious blue light have circulated for decades, drawing paranormal enthusiasts, history buffs, and thrill-seekers to its weathered steps and wrought-iron staircases. Originally constructed to aid navigation into Pensacola Harbor, the lighthouse quickly became a vital part of the coastal landscape. Keepers worked tirelessly to ensure the light stayed lit, braving storms and isolation to keep the beacon shining. Among them, one keeper and his family became central to the dark lore that surrounds the tower today. The keeper's wife, described in local accounts as gentle and devoted, was tragically murdered under mysterious circumstances, her death never fully explained. The grief and shock of the incident left an indelible mark not only on the lighthouse, but on the community itself. Since that time, visitors to the lighthouse have reported an array of paranormal occurrences. Many speak of the echo of footsteps on the metal spiral stairs, climbing and descending as though someone is moving tirelessly through the tower. These sounds often occur when no one else is in the lighthouse, and some claim they have seen shadows flit past the railings and landings. The footsteps are sometimes accompanied by the metallic creak of doors opening and slamming shut, though the winds are often still and the lighthouse itself is empty. Such phenomena give the impression of the lighthouse being inhabited once more, but by entities that do not belong to the living world. The most frequently reported apparition is that of the keeper's murdered wife. Visitors describe her as a faint, shimmering figure wandering the balcony or peering down from the upper landings. Her presence is usually preceded by a sudden chill, a drop in temperature that cuts through the humid Florida air. Witnesses often feel a sense of melancholy or unease, as though the spirit carries not just the memory of her untimely death, but a lingering sorrow that cannot find peace. Some claim to have heard soft whispers, indistinct at first, but gradually forming words of longing or warning. It is said that she roams the lighthouse searching for justice, or perhaps the comforting presence of her lost life, unable to move beyond the place where she met her end. One of the most chilling and consistently reported phenomena is the faint blue glow that circles the tower after midnight. Visitors describe seeing the eerie luminescence moving in slow, deliberate arcs along the balcony and exterior walls, as if the spirit of the keeper's wife is retracing her final steps. The light is cold and ethereal, contrasting sharply with the warm, golden beams of the lighthouse itself. Photographs often fail to capture it clearly, but those who have witnessed it in person describe a surreal and almost hypnotic quality, a glow that seems to linger in the mind long after the eyes have looked away. Some interpret it as a warning, a signal of the unresolved tragedy that haunts the lighthouse. Inside, the lighthouse is equally unsettling. The narrow, spiraling stairs seem to magnify every sound, and the metal framework transmits even the faintest creaks and groans, as if the building itself is alive. Visitors often report feeling as if unseen eyes are following them, a presence pressing close, yet impossible to identify. Some claim to see fleeting images out of the corners of their eyes, a shadow on a landing, the glint of a figure moving past a doorway, only for it to vanish when they turn to look. These glimpses, though brief, are enough to make even the most skeptical feel the weight of something beyond the natural world. The lighthouse grounds are not immune to the supernatural. On foggy nights, the outline of a woman has been seen wandering near the perimeter fence, her figure illuminated faintly by the light of the tower or the moon. Footsteps crunch on gravel where no one has walked, and some visitors report hearing the faint sound of a voice carried on the wind, murmuring names or softly calling for attention. The effect is subtle yet profoundly unnerving, creating a sensation that the lighthouse and its surrounding land are alive with memory and grief. Paranormal investigators have documented numerous anomalies over the years. Temperature spikes, electromagnetic fluctuations, and unexplained sounds are recorded with regularity, particularly on nights close to the anniversary of the keeper's wife's death. Many instruments register activity concentrated around the balcony and lantern room, aligning with the areas where witnesses most frequently report apparitions and the elusive blue glow. Audio recordings often capture faint murmurs or indistinct phrases, though the source remains impossible to locate, adding to the growing legend of the haunted lighthouse. Local folklore has embraced the Pensacola Lighthouse as one of the most haunted locations in Florida. Tour guides recount the story of the keeper's wife to visitors, speaking of her tragic murder, the endless search for peace, and the strange phenomena that continue to draw attention. While the history of the lighthouse is rooted in maritime safety and coastal navigation, the haunting has become an equally compelling reason to visit, turning the lighthouse into a portal between the past and the spectral present. Despite the eerie occurrences, the lighthouse continues to operate as a navigational aid, its primary purpose never forgotten. Yet for those who have stayed after dark, who have climbed the metal stairs under the stillness of night, or who have watched the lantern room long after the light was extinguished, the Pensacola Lighthouse offers more than guidance to ships. It offers a glimpse into a world where the dead continue to move among the living. Visitors leave with a lingering awareness that the blue glow may still sweep the tower, that footsteps echo long after the living have gone, and that the spirit of a woman murdered in life still circles her sanctuary, guarding and wandering, forever bound to the lighthouse she once knew. The Cape Florida Lighthouse, standing proudly on the southern tip of Key Biscayne, is the oldest standing structure in Miami-Dade County, a historic sentinel that has weathered centuries of storms, change, and human conflict. Its whitewashed walls and classic cylindrical form are a familiar sight to locals and tourists alike, a symbol of guidance and coastal safety. Yet beneath its calm and enduring exterior lies a story of fire, blood, and restless spirits, a tale that continues to haunt the lighthouse long after its brick and mortar were first laid. The lighthouse was first constructed in 1825, designed to guide ships safely along the dangerous reefs and shoals surrounding the Florida coastline. Mariners relied on its glow to navigate the treacherous waters, and the keeper of the lighthouse was charged with a solemn life-and-death responsibility, ensuring the lantern burned bright every night, regardless of weather or personal danger. For years, the lighthouse fulfilled its role without incident, until the outbreak of the Second Seminole War in the early 1830s brought violence and chaos to the area. In 1836, the lighthouse became the site of a horrific attack. Seminole warriors, resisting encroachment on their lands, targeted the structure, recognizing its strategic and symbolic significance. The lighthouse keeper, at the time a man, known for his dedication and courage, was trapped inside the tower during the assault. Accounts vary, but one chilling detail remains consistent. The keeper was caught in a fire that consumed the interior, leaving nothing but smoke and ash. Despite the inferno, local legends insist that he refused to abandon his post, desperate to keep the lantern lit for the sailors who depended on it. When the flames finally claimed him, the keeper's life ended in agony, and the lighthouse became a monument not only to guidance, but to tragedy. Since that fateful night, visitors to the Cape Florida Lighthouse have reported a variety of paranormal phenomena. The most frequently mentioned apparition is that of the lighthouse keeper himself. Witnesses describe a charred, shadowy figure, often seen through the haze or mist surrounding the tower, lantern in hand. This spectral form is most commonly observed during stormy nights, when lightning and wind make the tower appear alive. The figure seems to climb the spiral staircase or patrol the balcony, as though tending to the beacon even after death. Those who have seen him report a sense of awe mingled with fear, a feeling of encountering a soul unwilling to abandon its sacred duty. The lighthouse is also known for strange auditory phenomena. Footsteps echo along the interior floors when no one is present, the creak of stairs mimicking the long-dead keeper's movements. Some visitors have reported hearing muffled cries or screams, a terrifying reminder of the fire that claimed the keeper's life. Others claim to hear the faint sound of the lantern being lit, the soft hiss of the flame igniting, even when the tower is long extinguished. These auditory traces of the past seem to reinforce the presence of a spirit bound to his post, eternally vigilant in the face of danger. On nights when storms lash against Key Biscayne, the haunting becomes more pronounced. Lightning illuminates the tower, revealing a fleeting figure near the balcony or at the top of the spiral staircase. Tourists and locals alike have seen the charred form lift the lantern as if preparing to relight it, sweeping its faint glow across the ocean waves. Those who witness this phenomenon often describe an overwhelming mixture of fear, sadness, and reverence. The keeper's devotion, even in death, has left a mark that resonates with anyone who stands within the lighthouse's shadow during these dramatic nights. The surrounding grounds also carry a spectral energy. Many report seeing flickers of fire or mist hovering near the base of the lighthouse, the residue of the flames that consumed the keeper so many years ago. Visitors have felt sudden drops in temperature, the chill of a supernatural presence moving among the tropical heat. The wind carries whispers that are difficult to decipher. Some say they are warnings. Others believe they are cries for recognition, a spirit trapped between the living and the dead. Even in broad daylight, there is a sense that the lighthouse is not entirely empty, that the history of fire, death, and duty permeates the very walls. Photographs taken inside the lighthouse occasionally capture anomalies. Streaks of light in the spiral staircase, ghostly silhouettes in the upper balcony, and faint, ember-like glows hovering near the lantern. Paranormal investigators have recorded irregular electromagnetic activity, particularly on nights of storms or anniversaries of the 1836 attack. Audio recordings often pick up indistinct whispers, footsteps, and what some interpret as the sound of the lantern being struck, further corroborating tales of the keeper's persistent presence. Local lore has cemented the Cape Florida Lighthouse as one of the most haunted locations in South Florida. Tour guides recount the story of the tragic keeper and the Seminole attack, embellishing the tales with eyewitness accounts of glowing figures, footsteps, and the eerie blue flicker of the lantern. The lighthouse has become not only a historical landmark, but also a pilgrimage site for those drawn to the supernatural, eager to witness the legacy of a man who refused to abandon his duty even in the face of death. The lighthouse's haunting serves as a chilling reminder of the intersection between history and the supernatural. The charred keeper, eternally tending his lantern, symbolizes devotion, tragedy, and the unbroken thread of responsibility that binds some spirits to the earthly realm. Visitors who venture to the tower during stormy nights often report the same haunting impression, a feeling of being watched, of a presence that is at once protective and sorrowful. The Cape Florida Lighthouse, towering over Cape Biscayne, is not only a guide for ships, but also a beacon of memory, grief, and the enduring power of a spirit who never left his post. The Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse stands as a striking landmark along the Florida coast, its vivid red bricks rising against the backdrop of swaying palms and the glittering Atlantic. Built in 1860, the lighthouse has long served as a beacon for sailors navigating the treacherous waters near Hillsboro Inlet. Its towering presence commands attention by day, but it is at night, and particularly during storms, that the lighthouse's most mysterious and unsettling qualities emerge. Locals speak in hushed tones of supernatural occurrences, from glowing orbs floating in the sky to unexplained sounds echoing through the tower, all tied to a tragic event in the lighthouse's past. Historical records indicate that the lighthouse was manned by a series of diligent keepers, tasked with maintaining the powerful beacon that guided vessels safely to shore. Among these keepers was a man whose devotion to the lighthouse became the center of legend. During a fierce hurricane in the late 19th century, the keeper disappeared without a trace. The storm raged with unrelenting fury, lightning slicing across the sky, waves battering the coast, and wind howling through the surrounding mangroves. When the storm subsided, the keeper's watch was found at the very top of the lighthouse, still ticking, a stark reminder that he had completed his duty to the very end. His body, however, was never recovered, leaving a lingering sense of mystery and tragedy that would haunt the lighthouse for generations. The most common paranormal phenomenon reported at the Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse involves glowing orbs. Witnesses describe small, luminous spheres drifting upward from the ground, rising along the tower's exterior as though drawn by an unseen force. These orbs often appear during thunderstorms, their ethereal light reflecting off the red brick walls and the surrounding foliage. Some observers believe the orbs are manifestations of the keeper's spirit, still compelled to tend the lighthouse even in death. Others speculate they are the spirits of those lost at sea, drawn to the beacon's guiding light, unable to find rest without following its glow. Visitors who climb the lighthouse report unusual sensations inside the tower. The narrow spiral staircase, made of iron and worn by decades of use, often seems to amplify sounds that should not exist. Footsteps echo when no one else is present, and the faint scent of salt water and smoke sometimes fills the air, even on calm nights. Some claim to hear whispers near the lantern room, as if the keeper is communicating across time, reminding anyone who will listen of his eternal vigilance. The temperature inside can drop suddenly, the chill cutting through the humid Florida air, adding to the sense that an unseen presence shares the confined space. Glowing orbs are not the only phenomenon. On stormy nights, lightning strikes have been followed by inexplicable occurrences. Windows rattle, though the glass is intact, doors creak open, and the beams of the lighthouse seem to flicker in ways that cannot be explained by the electrical system. Witnesses have reported seeing shadowy figures at the top of the spiral staircase, disappearing when approached, and occasionally glimpsing the faint outline of a man drenched and wind-battered, yet standing resolute near the lantern, watching over the waters he once guarded. The surrounding grounds of the lighthouse are equally alive with strange activity. Along the nearby trails and marshlands, visitors have seen small lights moving erratically, as if playful yet deliberate. Dogs often react with fear to areas where the lights appear, barking or refusing to enter certain zones. Hikers have occasionally reported a feeling of being followed, a presence that remains just out of sight yet unmistakably attentive. Local lore suggests that the keeper's spirit may not be alone, that other entities, drawn to the lighthouse's power, linger in the surrounding area, invisible yet ever present. Many attempts have been made to document these supernatural events. Photographs often capture orbs of light or fleeting shadowy forms near the top of the tower. Audio recordings sometimes pick up low murmurs, unexplained thumps, or metallic creaks consistent with the movement of the old staircase, even when no one is on site. Paranormal investigators have noted spikes in electromagnetic activity near the lantern room, particularly during storms, as if the presence of lightning interacts with lingering energy in ways that amplify the supernatural. Despite these unsettling reports, the Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse remains a popular historical site, attracting visitors who are eager to climb its steps and explore the keeper's quarters. Guides often share the story of the missing keeper, the strange orbs, and the lighthouse's haunted reputation, creating a palpable tension that adds to the experience. Those who have spent the night on the grounds or climbed the tower after dark describe an overwhelming awareness that they are not alone, that the spirits of the past, particularly the devoted keeper, still move among the bricks and shadows. The legend of the keeper's disappearance during the hurricane has become intertwined with the lighthouse's identity. The unwavering presence of the orbs, the faint glimpses of a man near the lantern, and the eerie sounds of footsteps and whispers all suggest that some duties cannot be abandoned, even in death. The keeper, lost to the storm, may still be fulfilling his final obligation, ensuring that the lighthouse continues to shine as a guide, not just for sailors, but for the spirits that wander the Florida coast. On stormy nights, when lightning fractures the sky and waves pound the shoreline, witnesses swear the tower becomes alive with unseen energy. The glowing orbs drift upward toward the lantern. The iron staircase echoes with phantom footsteps, and the faint outline of a man appears at the top, lantern in hand, standing vigil as he did more than a century ago. Visitors often describe a strange mixture of fear, reverence, and awe, sensing that the lighthouse exists as both a monument of history and a threshold between the living and the dead. The Cape San Blas Lighthouse, perched on the shifting sands of Port St. Joe, Florida, has stood as a sentinel against the Gulf of Mexico's treacherous waters for more than a century. Built in 1847, the lighthouse has survived storms, hurricanes, and relentless erosion that has forced its relocation multiple times. Yet, despite the engineers, construction crews, and modern technology that have moved and stabilized it, the lighthouse carries a presence older than any blueprint or bulldozer. Those who have worked near it, visited it, or studied it, speak of a chilling cold that lingers long after the sun sets. A sensation that something unseen watches and follows its every movement. The Cape San Blas Lighthouse has always been a vital beacon for sailors navigating the shifting shoals and hidden sandbars along the Florida Panhandle. Its cylindrical brick structure rises above the dunes, a symbol of hope and guidance for those on the Gulf. But the Gulf is relentless, and the coastline has slowly encroached, forcing the lighthouse to be moved inland multiple times. While erosion explains the necessity for relocation, workers and locals claim something more supernatural follows the structure, a presence that refuses to be left behind. It is a cold, intangible force that seems to seep into the very walls of the lighthouse, growing stronger whenever the lighthouse is touched, moved, or disturbed. During the 2014 relocation, crews reported a series of strange occurrences that could not be explained by machinery or natural causes. Tools disappeared from workstations only to reappear in impossible locations. Radios lost signal despite being fully functional, and lights inside the lighthouse flickered violently even when disconnected from the electrical grid. At first, workers laughed it off, joking that the long-deceased lighthouse keeper must be assisting them. guiding the tower safely to its new home. But their amusement quickly faded as the disturbances intensified, becoming harder to ignore and more difficult to rationalize. Even stranger were the photographs taken during the move. Workers posed with cranes, heavy machinery, and the lighthouse itself, only to discover, upon reviewing the images, that shadows appeared where none should have been. A tall, thin figure, unmistakably human in shape, lingered near the lighthouse in several photos. Always in the periphery, often cast against a sunlit brick. When zoomed in, the shadow appeared charred or darkened, almost burned into the frame, as if the keeper's spirit had manifested, ensuring the lighthouse remained intact. Workers who had seen the photos reported a sudden drop in temperature while examining them, a chill that seemed to settle into their bones, confirming that the figure was no ordinary trick of light. Visitors to the lighthouse have echoed similar reports. Those who climb the spiral staircase or walk along the balcony speak of sudden cold drafts, even on the warmest Florida afternoons. Footsteps echo where no one else is present, and tools or small objects occasionally vanish from the gift shop or lantern room, only to reappear in odd corners or near the base of the stairs. Some claim to hear faint murmurs, low and indistinct, like a man counting, warning, or simply reminding them that he is still there. The sensation is often described as protective rather than malevolent, though it is undeniably unsettling. The lighthouse keeper's shadow, as captured in photographs, has become a symbol of the haunting. Descriptions consistently depict a thin man wearing a brimmed hat, often holding an invisible lantern, or standing just beyond the edge of vision. Those who attempt to approach the shadow report an immediate sense of pressure, as though something is pushing them back, keeping a boundary between the living and the dead. Locals say it is the keeper, ensuring that his lighthouse remains safe, his vigilance eternal, tied to the brick and mortar of the structure rather than to any mortal limits. Erosion, storms, and hurricanes have all challenged the lighthouse physically, but the spiritual presence seems impervious to change. Each time the structure has been moved, whether in the early 20th century or the most recent relocation, the disturbances reappear, tools go missing, machinery falters, and lights flicker. Paranormal investigators who have visited the lighthouse report a persistent electromagnetic field near the base and interior, one that fluctuates inexplicably and seems to respond to human movement. Audio recordings occasionally capture low murmurs, faint footsteps, or the creak of the spiral staircase, even when no one else is inside. The Cape San Blas Lighthouse is also said to carry the weight of those who once relied on it. Mariners, travelers, and coastal residents have long considered it a guardian against the unpredictable Gulf, and some believe that the keeper's spirit has extended his duties beyond mere light. Ghost hunters and locals alike report a sense of being watched when approaching the lighthouse after dark, a subtle pressure at the nape of the neck, and a feeling that the structure itself is alive with purpose. Even the sand and surrounding dunes seem charged with energy, as if the presence extends beyond the brick walls and spiral staircase into the land that surrounds it. Stories of the haunted lighthouse have become part of local lore, passed from generation to generation. Guides recount tales of the keeper, the shadow captured in photographs, and the eerie occurrences that accompany every relocation. Some say the spirit is bound to the lighthouse itself, a guardian who will not abandon his post regardless of storms, erosion, or human intervention. Others claim he is still tending the light in some metaphysical sense, keeping the Gulf safe and ensuring that the lighthouse continues to shine, both as a historical beacon and a supernatural sentinel. Whether the lighthouse's ghostly presence is protective or simply restless remains a matter of interpretation. What is undeniable is that Cape San Blas Lighthouse commands attention, not just for its history, architecture, or coastal significance, but for the chilling and persistent evidence that something unseen continues to inhabit it. The shadow in photographs, the cold presence during relocation, the vanishing tools, and the inexplicable flickering of lights all point to a spirit unwilling to leave, tethered to the lighthouse through duty, tragedy, and the unbroken will to safeguard those who rely on the beacon. Egmont Key Lighthouse, rising from the sands of Tampa Bay, stands as a solitary guardian over the waters where ships have sailed for centuries. Built in 1848, it has guided sailors through the shifting channels and dangerous shoals at the mouth of Tampa Bay. A beacon of safety in a world of uncertainty. But the lighthouse is more than bricks and mortar. It is a monument to isolation, history, and the unexplainable. Accessible only by boat, it sits amid the ruins of forts and other structures swallowed slowly by sand and time. A lonely sentinel that seems almost to exist outside the bounds of the modern world. Visitors who make the trek to Egmont Key often speak of the overwhelming stillness that surrounds it. The wind carries the scent of salt and seaweed, and the waves lap gently against the shore. But there is a sense that the lighthouse watches, and that something watches from within. Local fishermen who pass the island at night share stories that send chills even to those familiar with the sea. They claim that, even though the lighthouse has been decommissioned and its power disconnected, the beacon occasionally flares brightly, illuminating the night sky in sudden piercing light before vanishing as quickly as it appeared. These moments are fleeting, yet they are unmistakable. Visible for miles across the water, and often accompanied by a strange feeling of being observed. The most persistent apparition reported is that of a solitary man walking the catwalk of the lighthouse. Fishermen describe him as a figure dressed in antiquated clothing, moving with purpose along the narrow railing at the top of the tower. Sometimes he carries a lantern, waving it toward the dark waters below, as if warning an unseen vessel of danger. Witnesses claim that no ship ever comes, no sailor answers the signal, yet the figure continues his watch, relentless in his vigilance. There is an eerie sense that he is bound to the lighthouse, to the duty he performed in life, and that time has no meaning for him here, among the ruins and sand. Many who have approached the lighthouse during the day report subtle signs that something is not right. Doors that should remain closed are found ajar. The catwalk railing occasionally rattles with no wind, and the air often carries a chill, even in the heat of Florida afternoons. Some have reported seeing shadowy movements in the windows, brief glimmers of someone or something walking the spiral staircase. The feeling of being watched is almost tangible, a weight that seems to press against the back of the neck and shoulders. Even on a sunny, calm day, there is an awareness that Egmont Key is a place where the past lingers, where those who once served the lighthouse refuse to leave. The lighthouse's history is steeped in both service and tragedy. Its construction took years, and several workers died during its early days, claimed by disease or accident in the harsh, isolated conditions of the island. Over time, keepers devoted their lives to the light, maintaining it through storms, hurricanes, and long periods of isolation. One story, passed down among fishermen and local historians, speaks of a keeper who never left his post, even in death. According to legend, he continued his rounds after passing, his spirit bound to the lantern and catwalk, waving his lamp at phantom ships, forever guiding those who cannot see, protecting those who no longer sail. Nighttime on the waters around Egmont Key seems to amplify the supernatural presence. Fishermen who have anchored near the island report that their compasses occasionally spin without cause, and their radios emit static that cannot be tuned away. Some swear that the sound of distant footsteps or the creak of the spiral staircase echoes across the water, though the lighthouse is empty and the tide too low for anyone to have climbed it. On stormy nights, lightning illuminates the tower and ruins in stark flashes, revealing the solitary figure of a man on the catwalk or the lantern flaring inexplicably in the dark. The combination of natural elements and supernatural phenomena creates a scene both beautiful and terrifying, a testament to the lighthouse's haunting energy. Photographs taken near the lighthouse often capture anomalies. Lights flare in empty windows, shadows stretch impossibly long across the sand, and faint outlines of a man appear on the catwalk, even when no one is physically present. Some fishermen claim to have seen a glowing orb rise from the base of the lighthouse, floating upward toward the tower and hovering near the lantern before fading into the night. Many who witnessed these events describe them as both mesmerizing and frightening, a reminder that the lighthouse is alive in ways beyond the material world. Even during the day, Visitors report strange occurrences. Tools left behind by maintenance crews vanish, only to appear in different parts of the structure. Footsteps echo in hallways where the floorboards have long been rotted away. The wind carries whispers that some swear are warnings, urging them to respect the space and the duty that still lingers there. Those who spend too long in the lighthouse often emerge shaken, feeling as though they have intruded upon a world in which time and death hold no dominion. The Egmont Key Lighthouse continues to inspire stories of mystery and the supernatural. Guides and locals tell tales of the glowing lantern, the spectral figure on the catwalk, and the flashes of light that appear when the island is shrouded in fog or storm clouds. Whether a warning to sailors, a message from the past, or simply the residual energy of decades of devoted service, the lighthouse remains a place where the line between the living and the dead is blurred. Anclote Key Lighthouse stands as a solitary sentinel off the coast of Tarpon Springs, Florida, a tower of brick and iron rising from the quiet sands of a largely deserted island. Built in 1887, it has long served as a guide for ships navigating the shallow waters and hidden shoals of the Gulf. Today, the lighthouse is remote, accessible only by boat, and surrounded by dunes and sparse vegetation that shift with the tides and winds. Despite its isolation, or perhaps because of it, the lighthouse seems far from abandoned. Locals, rangers, and fishermen all tell stories of inexplicable phenomena that suggest someone or something remains on duty, watching, listening, and patrolling its post. Rangers, who camp near the island's dunes, report a variety of strange experiences that defy ordinary explanation. Late at night, when the Gulf waters are calm and the world seems to hold its breath, faint music drifts across the sand. Some describe it as a melancholy tune, like a piano or violin playing a mournful melody. Though no instrument is present, the notes seem to come from the lighthouse itself, or perhaps from the air immediately surrounding it, carried by the wind in such a way that it is impossible to locate their source. Those who hear it often report a sudden chill, a sensation of being watched, or the unmistakable feeling of a presence standing nearby in the darkness. Even more unsettling are the reports of lights inside the lighthouse. The tower is officially decommissioned, its doors secured with heavy padlocks, yet rangers and visitors swear they see illumination moving across the windows. At times, the light flickers as if someone is climbing the spiral staircase, carrying a lantern or performing routine checks. Other times, it glows steadily at the lantern room, casting its beam across the Gulf, though no electricity flows to the tower. Cameras set up near the structure have captured anomalies, faint silhouettes moving through the windows, shadows climbing the staircase, and orbs of light drifting along the interior, as though the lighthouse is alive with invisible activity. Local legend attributes these strange occurrences to keeper Peter Brown, who lived and worked at the lighthouse in the early 20th century. Brown was known for his dedication to his duties, often remaining at the post during hurricanes and storms, ensuring that the light never failed. In the solitude of the island, his life was one of discipline and isolation, patrolling the tower day and night, maintaining the beacon that guided countless sailors to safety. When Brown died, alone on the island, many believe his spirit remained, bound by duty to the lighthouse he loved and served so faithfully. It is said that he continues to patrol the tower, tending the light, checking the structure, and keeping a silent vigil over the waters he once safeguarded. The reports from those near the lighthouse are eerily consistent. Observers describe hearing the soft, metallic creak of the spiral staircase when no one is inside. Doors occasionally rattle though tightly secured, and shadows appear to move along the walls in ways that defy explanation. Some have even reported the faint scent of tobacco or pipe smoke, said to be associated with Brown, lingering in the lighthouse's narrow hallways. The combination of sound, sight, and inexplicable atmospheric shifts has convinced many that the lighthouse is not merely haunted. It is occupied by a spirit still fulfilling his earthly responsibilities. The musical phenomena are particularly haunting. Rangers and overnight visitors describe standing on the dunes, hearing melodies that rise and fall with the wind. At times, The music is mournful and slow, echoing the solitude and loneliness of the keeper's life. Other times, it is urgent, a repeating pattern that seems like a warning or an attempt to communicate. Attempts to record the music have often resulted in static-laden audio or files that play distorted notes, as if the recording itself cannot capture the essence of the apparition. Those who experience it firsthand often report goosebumps, the hairs on their arms standing on end, and the sense that they are witnessing a moment suspended between the living and the dead. Even daytime visitors note the lighthouse's strange energy. Shadows move in the windows, despite the sun's position, and sudden gusts of wind can swirl around the base of the tower with no explanation. Photographs taken from a distance sometimes reveal odd anomalies, faint outlines of a man on the spiral staircase, the suggestion of a lantern held aloft, or a subtle glow around the lantern room itself. No human presence is ever observed in conjunction with these phenomena, further reinforcing the idea that a spirit remains on duty, tending the lighthouse as if the decades since his death never existed. The isolation of Anclote Key amplifies the effect. The lighthouse is surrounded by water and dunes, and there is little other human activity to explain the sounds, lights, or movement. Animals, too, react. Strangely, dogs often growl or refuse to approach certain areas, and seabirds sometimes circle the lighthouse in patterns that seem unusual or deliberate. Locals and fishermen tell stories of boats passing by at night, the crew suddenly noticing the lighthouse lantern flaring brightly before vanishing moments later, leaving them unsure whether they had truly seen it or imagined it. Those who believe in Peter Brown's lingering presence say he is a steadfast guardian, a spirit unwilling to abandon his post even in death. The lighthouse, though officially silent and decommissioned, continues to serve its purpose, guided by hands no longer living. The music, lights, shadows, and chills are all pieces of the same story. A man so devoted to his duty that even the barriers of life and death cannot remove him from his post. Amelia Island Lighthouse, standing proudly on the northern tip of Fernandina Beach, Florida, is one of the oldest working lighthouses in the United States. Built in 1838, it has guided countless ships through the shifting sands and treacherous shoals of the Atlantic coast. But while its light continues to shine for the living, those who have spent time near the tower speak of a presence that belongs to another world, haunted, mysterious, and strangely intelligent. The lighthouse is said to be home to spirits who refuse to let go, and visitors have long reported experiences that cannot be explained by science or reason. The most commonly reported entity is the ghost of a young girl, the daughter of a former keeper. She died tragically at a tender age. Though records vary on the details, some say illness, others an accident on the stairs of the lighthouse itself. Her spirit is said to linger in the tower, her laughter echoing faintly along the spiral staircase. Campers and visitors who explore the lighthouse at night sometimes hear delicate giggles drifting down from the upper levels, accompanied by the subtle patter of small feet on worn wooden steps. The sound is fleeting, almost playful, yet chilling in its uncanny clarity. Those who attempt to ascend the stairs often report feeling watched, and occasionally feel the sensation of a light touch on their shoulder or hand, as though the child is guiding or warning them. Even the lighthouse's beacon has exhibited unusual behavior. Several times throughout the past century, the light has flashed erratically, seemingly out of rhythm with its normal pattern. Coast Guard records from one particularly mysterious instance reveal a series of flashes that, when analyzed, appeared to follow the pattern of Morse code. However, the sequence did not correspond to any known language, navigational code, or distress signal. Some researchers speculate that it may have been the child attempting to communicate, while others believe it is a residual imprint of her presence, encoded into the lighthouse's very mechanism. Witnesses describe the flashes as sudden, bright bursts, sometimes illuminating the surrounding dunes and beach for miles, followed by a return to normal operation as if nothing had occurred. Visitors to the lighthouse frequently report an overwhelming sense of being observed, even in broad daylight. Shadows move across the interior walls in ways that defy explanation. And the spiral staircase seems to creak and groan with no human weight upon it. At night, the feeling intensifies. The narrow corridors carry whispers and faint giggles, and the air turns inexplicably cold, despite the Florida humidity. Some have claimed to see a fleeting figure at the top of the tower, a girl with long, flowing hair, peering down at intruders with a mixture of curiosity and sadness. Photographs taken inside the lighthouse often show anomalous faint streaks of light, ghostly outlines near the staircase, or what appear to be small handprints on the glass of the lantern room windows. The lighthouse's haunted reputation is not limited to its interior. Local fishermen and boaters report that the light sometimes behaves unpredictably when storms approach or the tide shifts. The beam may flare and pulse, casting eerie patterns across the waves as though spelling a message meant only for those who know to look. Some boaters have claimed that, when navigating near the island at night, the flashes seem to guide them away from hidden shoals, while others insist they saw a figure waving a lantern atop the tower, helping them steer clear of danger. Those who approach by water often hear faint laughter mixing with the sounds of the surf, or see shadows flitting across the beach dunes as though a child is playing unseen games. Coast Guard personnel stationed near Amelia Island have occasionally documented paranormal phenomena. Morse code recordings from the lighthouse in the 20th century show patterns that remain indecipherable, even to modern cryptographers. Officers who monitored the tower's instruments report sudden malfunctions, unexplained electrical surges, and lights flickering in ways inconsistent with normal operation. Some have described a sensation of being accompanied, as if someone is walking behind them along the lighthouse's narrow platforms or watching from the upper balcony. The most vivid accounts include reports of hearing the unmistakable sound of small footsteps climbing the spiral staircase at night, even when the tower was empty. Local folklore emphasizes the unique nature of Amelia Island Lighthouse's haunting. Unlike many spectral tales, the presence here seems tied not to anger or malice, but to devotion and curiosity. The girl's spirit is playful at times, mischievously moving objects, leaving faint handprints, or laughing softly. Yet there is also an undeniable sense of intelligence behind the activity. It is as if the child continues to explore the lighthouse, discovering its nooks and crannies, while attempting to interact with the living in a way only she can. The Morse code flashes and the beacon's erratic behavior reinforce the idea that the lighthouse itself is a medium for her presence, a conduit for messages that remain just beyond understanding. Those who spend the night on Amelia Island or camp near the dunes often speak of an atmosphere that is both magical and unnerving. The air seems charged with energy, carrying the sounds of the surf, the cry of distant seabirds, and the occasional, unmistakable giggle echoing from the spiral staircase. Shadows move independently of natural light, and the beacon may flare unexpectedly, creating a flickering glow that paints the sand and the surrounding ruins in spectral light. Even experienced lighthouse enthusiasts admit to feeling a chill, a sense that the island is alive with memories and spirits that refuse to be forgotten. Visitors who interact respectfully with the lighthouse and its haunted history often leave with the impression that they have glimpsed a bridge between worlds. The child's laughter, the inexplicable lights, and the ghostly footprints along the staircase all suggest a presence that continues to patrol, explore, and protect the lighthouse. Keeper Peter Brown's stories of dedication seem echoed here in a different form, enduring spirit who refuses to leave her home, whose curiosity and energy have fused with the structure itself. Crooked River Lighthouse, perched near the Carabel River in Florida, is a structure that has guided countless ships safely through the shifting channels of the Gulf Coast. Built in the late 19th century, it has long been a vital beacon for sailors navigating treacherous waters. But while its purpose was once purely functional, the lighthouse has developed a reputation for the uncanny, earning the nickname Crooked not only for its subtle lean, but also for the strange, unexplainable phenomena that surround it. Locals and visitors alike describe sounds, lights, and sensations that suggest the lighthouse is more than brick and mortar. It is a place where the past refuses to stay buried, and the restless linger in silence. One of the most commonly reported phenomena is the sound of tapping metal echoing through the lighthouse at night. Residents of nearby Carabel claim that when fog rolls in from the Gulf, the quiet becomes punctuated by sharp, deliberate knocks. It is often described as the unmistakable sound of someone working on a lantern, scraping, hammering, and tightening pieces, though the lighthouse's bulb has been removed for decades. Those who hear it report a sensation of tension and anticipation, as if someone unseen is laboring to maintain the light, performing a task that no longer has a practical purpose. The sounds rise and fall with the fog, creating a rhythm that seems almost deliberate, like a heartbeat, marking the passage of time within the abandoned tower. On particularly foggy nights, the most unnerving phenomenon occurs. A red light pulses from the peak of the lighthouse. This light is visible for miles across the marshes and river channels, glowing with a slow, deliberate rhythm. Witnesses insist that no bulb or modern equipment is in place to create the effect. Yet it appears, bright and unyielding, casting its eerie glow across the surrounding waters. Some local boaters swear that the pulsing light serves as a warning, though no records of its appearance exist in navigational logs. Others suggest it is the lingering presence of a keeper, long gone, maintaining a vigil that time cannot erase. The light, combined with the metallic tapping, gives the impression that the lighthouse continues to function, guided by invisible hands that refuse to rest. Those who approach Crooked River Lighthouse during the day often notice subtle signs that something is amiss. The lean of the tower is more pronounced than most realize, giving the structure a slightly unnatural tilt. Windows, though closed and often coated in years of salt and dust, sometimes seem to reflect movement within. Shadows appear to shift along the spiral staircase when no one is present, and faint cold spots can be felt along the floors and near the foundation. Visitors frequently report the sensation of being observed, a prickling awareness that something unseen is paying attention to every step they take. The combination of sight, sound, and touch creates a profound sense of unease, a reminder that the lighthouse is alive in ways that defy reason. The history of Crooked River Lighthouse offers some insight into these experiences. Keepers who served the tower were often isolated for weeks at a time, tending the light in all weather conditions. Letters from the late 1800s describe the mental strain of long nights, the weight of responsibility, and the toll of solitude. One story, often told by locals, concerns a keeper who became obsessed with maintaining the light, even after his tenure ended. He is said to have died within the lighthouse, still tending the lantern that no longer needed tending. Some believe that his dedication bound him to the tower, his spirit eternally fulfilling the duty he valued above all else. Fog plays a central role in the lighthouse's spectral activity. On thick, gray nights, the metallic tapping grows louder, as if amplified by the mist, and the red light pulses more vividly against the gray backdrop. Rangers, fishermen, and occasional explorers have described the disorienting effect. The fog obscures the surrounding marshes and river channels, isolating the lighthouse in a world of mist and shadow. In these conditions, the sounds seem closer than they are, the pulsing light more immediate, and the sensation of being watched becomes nearly unbearable. Many who have visited report an instinctive desire to leave the area quickly, though the phenomena remain visible and audible long after they depart. Photographs taken near the lighthouse sometimes reveal anomalies that cannot be explained. Shadows appear to cling to the walls of the tower, even when sunlight clearly illuminates the structure. Occasional streaks of red light are visible in images where no illumination source exists. Equipment left behind by maintenance crews has gone missing or been relocated without explanation. Those who attempt to capture the tapping sounds on audio record devices often report that the files play back distorted, warped, or incomplete, as if the recording itself cannot fully contain the reality of the event. Even during daylight hours, visitors feel the lighthouse's presence. The air around the foundation often carries an inexplicable chill, and the lean of the tower gives it an almost sentient quality, as though it has absorbed decades of vigilance, solitude, and unseen labor. Shadows sometimes shift unnaturally, and the spiral staircase occasionally emits faint creaks, though the structure is empty. Those who explore the lighthouse report a strange energy, an awareness that the building is more than stone and mortar. A physical embodiment of dedication, isolation, and the supernatural. The combination of sound, light, and sensation has given Crooked River Lighthouse a unique and unsettling reputation. The metallic tapping and pulsing red light are not random occurrences. They are tied to the island, the tower, and perhaps the spirit of a keeper who never abandoned his post. For locals, boaters, and adventurers, the lighthouse is a reminder that some duty cannot be relinquished, and some presences linger far longer than expected. Gasparilla Island Lighthouse, located on the southern tip of Boca Grande, Florida, stands as a historic beacon amid white sands and swaying palms, its whitewashed tower marking the edge of the Gulf of Mexico. Built in the late 19th century, the lighthouse once guided ships through treacherous waters and shifting sandbars, ensuring that trade and travel could continue along the coast. But while the lights served the living, Gasparilla Island holds secrets darker and older than any navigation chart. Stories passed down by locals suggest that the island's sandy shores are haunted by the spirit of the infamous pirate José Gaspar, known as Gasparilla, who is rumored to have buried treasure along the beaches and marshlands. Even long after his supposed death, some say he remains, bound to the land, to guard what he left behind. Visitors and nighttime wanderers along the shoreline often report seeing a shadowy figure moving near the lighthouse. Descriptions are consistent: a tall man, dressed in weathered clothing from centuries past, carrying a cutlass that glints in the moonlight. His lantern swings wildly, casting erratic light patterns across the sand and surf. Those who have glimpsed him report a feeling of unease that is almost magnetic, as if the air itself is charged with tension. When approached, the figure vanishes without a trace, sometimes reappearing further down the beach or simply dissolving into mist, leaving no footprints in the sand. The ghost of Gasparilla is said to be drawn to those who wander too close to the hidden treasure he allegedly buried. Some visitors have reported following the lantern's erratic glow, curious or bold enough to pursue the light across the sands. Many describe a sensation of being pulled forward, as though the glowing apparition itself is guiding them. Then, just as they reach the water's edge, the lantern vanishes completely, leaving only the sound of crashing waves and the echo of a faint, hollow laugh. Those who experience this phenomenon often report an overwhelming sense of dread, a feeling that the pirate's spirit will not allow anyone to claim what he left behind. The encounter is at once thrilling and terrifying, a dance between curiosity and fear that keeps even the most daring away from the water after dark. On stormy nights, the lighthouse itself seems to participate in the haunting. Witnesses describe flashes of light in the lantern room, far beyond its normal functioning. The beam sometimes swings unpredictably, cutting across the beach and marshes in erratic patterns. Some have captured photographs of the light and later noticed faint silhouettes inside the tower, as if the pirate himself is standing atop the stairs, watching the beach below. The combination of storm winds, crashing waves, and spectral illumination creates an atmosphere both eerie and hypnotic, leaving observers with a deep sense that the island is alive with a presence that defies natural explanation. Locals often warn visitors not to linger near the lighthouse at night. Fishermen have reported seeing the shadowy figure pacing near the water or along the dunes, his lantern reflecting off the calm surface of tidal pools. Some swear that the sound of clinking metal cutlass against belt, or perhaps the jingling of hidden coins, can be heard if one listens closely. Others describe a sudden drop in temperature or an unnatural stillness, as if the island holds its breath whenever the pirate appears. Even those who do not see him often feel his gaze, a spectral awareness that follows them across the sand and into the shadows of the palms. The legend of Gasparilla's ghost is intertwined with the island's history. Oral traditions suggest that the pirate hid vast treasure on the island, then met a mysterious end at sea. Some say he was killed by rival pirates, while others insist he sailed off into the horizon, leaving behind only whispers and warnings. The most persistent belief is that his spirit returned to the island, tethered by greed, pride, and an enduring sense of guardianship over the gold and jewels he hid. Over the decades, countless treasure hunters, adventurers, and curious visitors have reported encounters with his apparition, reinforcing the story that Gasparilla still walks the beaches, ever vigilant. Nighttime visitors often describe a surreal, almost cinematic scene. The lighthouse standing tall against a sky full of stars, the Gulf waves rolling gently to the shore, and a shadowy figure moving in and out of the moonlight, lantern swinging. The beach seems empty, yet there is movement, a pulse of energy that is impossible to ignore. Those who follow the lantern find themselves walking along sand that feels unnaturally firm or shifting in strange ways, as if the island itself is alive, guiding them toward or away from hidden secrets. The pirates' laughter, metallic sounds, and sudden vanishing only heighten the sense that the island is a place where the past refuses to rest. Photographs and recordings from the island frequently show anomalies. Lantern light streaks across the frame with no source. Shadows appear in positions inconsistent with the photographer's perspective, and faint forms can sometimes be seen standing near the base of the lighthouse. These recordings often intensify the legend, proving for some that Gasparilla's ghost is no mere tale. Visitors report that even the most rational, skeptical minds are unsettled when confronted with the spectral figure and apparition that is both alluring and threatening, tied eternally to the island's sands and the hidden treasure below. Alligator Reef Lighthouse, standing off the coast of Islamorada in the Florida Keys, rises like a solitary sentinel from the turquoise waters of the Atlantic. Built in the mid-19th century, the lighthouse was erected to warn mariners of the deadly reef that claimed the USS Alligator in 1822. A tragedy that has echoed across the centuries. Its skeletal iron framework and towering lantern have guided countless ships safely, but those who venture near the reef tell a darker story. The waters surrounding the lighthouse are said to be haunted by the restless souls of sailors who perished in the wreck. And divers, fishermen, and late-night boaters have reported experiences that defy explanation. The most persistent accounts involve ghostly figures beneath the water. Divers exploring the reef often speak of seeing human-like shapes drifting silently just beneath the surface. They describe a pale, almost luminescent glow surrounding the forms, as if the light of the lighthouse itself has seeped into the water to illuminate the drowned. These figures move slowly, drifting in the current, yet always seem to remain near the tower, as if tethered to it. Witnesses say, the specters do not react to human presence in the way one would expect. There is no fear, no panic, but rather a quiet, mournful awareness, an eternal repetition of the final moments before the water claimed them. The effect is hauntingly beautiful and unnervingly unnatural, leaving divers with an impression of being watched by the long-dead sailors. At night, the lighthouse takes on an even more unsettling atmosphere. Mariners report that the water around Alligator Reef shimmers with an otherworldly light. Occasionally, the lantern appears to flash in ways inconsistent with its operating schedule, casting a strange glow across the reef. Fishermen have claimed to see figures walking on the water itself, or emerging briefly above the surface, only to vanish as if swallowed by the sea. These apparitions are often accompanied by the faint sounds of splashing or the echoes of voices calling out in desperation. Some swear that the cries are warnings. Others believe they are remnants of fear and confusion from the shipwreck, replayed endlessly beneath the lighthouse. Those who approach the tower on boats or kayaks frequently speak of a chilling sensation, a coldness that cannot be attributed to the breeze or ocean currents. The air around the lighthouse seems to thrum with energy, charged with the memory of lives lost. Some describe feeling a sudden pull, as if the water itself is attempting to drag them closer, though the source of the force is impossible to pinpoint. Others recount moments of vertigo, disorientation, or an overwhelming sadness that descends without warning. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences leaves visitors with an uneasy sense that the reef is not merely a physical hazard, but a threshold between the living and the dead. Historical accounts provide context to these hauntings. The USS Alligator, a naval schooner, ran aground on the reef during a storm in 1822, and many of its crew drowned, trying to swim ashore or cling to debris. Survivors told harrowing stories of men lost to the currents, disappearing beneath the waves despite the desperate efforts of their comrades. The lighthouse was later built to prevent further tragedies, but legend holds that the souls of the lost sailors never left the waters. Over time, locals have claimed that every shipwreck, every near drowning, leaves a lingering imprint in the currents, forming a tapestry of sorrow that clings to the reef and the tower. Divers often remark on the silence that accompanies the haunting figures. When the glowing apparitions appear, the water is unnaturally still. No fish swim nearby, no wind ripples the surface, and even the hum of boat engines seems to fade. It is as if the presence of the drowned demands quiet, an invisible protocol enforced by those who never reached shore. Some divers have reported that during these moments, the shapes seem to move with intention, guiding explorers along the reef before slipping back into deeper water, just out of reach. Others describe fleeting touches on their hands or arms, subtle taps that vanish instantly, leaving no trace but a lingering unease. Fishermen and boaters recount another strange phenomenon. On calm nights, the light from the lighthouse appears unusually bright, reflecting across the water in streaks that almost resemble pathways. Occasionally, figures can be seen pacing along these illuminated lines, their silhouettes faint and shifting, as if trapped between worlds. Some believe these are sailors trying to retrace their steps to shore, endlessly repeating the moments that led to their deaths. Others suggest the apparitions are warnings, an invitation for the living to recognize the dangers lurking beneath the deceptively calm waters of Alligator Reef. The haunting is not limited to the water. The lighthouse itself has its own strange behaviors. Electrical equipment sometimes malfunctions inexplicably, and lantern flashes have been reported when the light is not scheduled to operate. Some visitors claim to hear creaking metal, like the tower itself, sighing under the weight of history, or faint footsteps echoing along the catwalks above the water. In some photographs, faint white shapes appear hovering near the tower, almost transparent but distinctly human. The combination of spectral activity on land and in the water creates a persistent legend that the lighthouse is not only a beacon for sailors, but a guardian for souls lost at sea. Local lore emphasizes the duality of Alligator Reef Lighthouse as both a warning and a resting place. The glowing figures beneath the surface serve as a reminder of the dangers that claim them, while the tower itself continues to cast light over the reef, a sentinel that never sleeps. Visitors leave with stories of eerie illumination, drifting apparitions, and the ever-present sense of being watched by unseen eyes. It is a place where history, tragedy, and the supernatural converge, where the past refuses to be forgotten, and where the restless dead of the USS Alligator still linger, patrolling the turquoise waters with silent vigilance. St. Mark's Lighthouse, perched on the edge of Wakulla County in Florida, has long stood as a sentinel over the Gulf Coast, its white tower rising above marshes and tidal waters. Built in the mid-19th century, it guided countless ships safely past treacherous shoals and shifting sandbars. Yet the lighthouse is not merely a beacon for sailors. It is a place steeped in history, tragedy, and the supernatural. Stories passed down through generations tell of a keeper who remained at his post during the chaos of the Civil War, refusing to abandon the lighthouse even as conflict raged around him. That devotion would ultimately cost him his life, and locals insist that his presence lingers, keeping the flame alive long after his death. The legend begins during the Civil War, when Union and Confederate forces clashed along the Gulf Coast. The lighthouse keeper at the time, whose name has been lost to history, faced the impossible choice of abandoning the tower or staying to maintain the light. Despite the dangers, he remained steadfast, understanding that ships relied on the beacon to navigate safely. Reports indicate that even as nearby areas were shelled or occupied by soldiers, the keeper refused to leave, ascending the spiral staircase daily and tending the lantern with unwavering dedication. It was his loyalty to duty that would ultimately become the foundation for the haunting that persists today. When he was finally found, the keeper had perished, his body discovered near the lantern room. His hands were still clutching the lantern, and though the glass had long since cooled, it appeared as if he had been trying to ensure the flame never died. His sacrifice became the cornerstone of local lore, and fishermen, boaters, and visitors began reporting strange occurrences around the lighthouse decades later. Some claim that on foggy nights, when the world is obscured and visibility drops to near zero, a faint light appears atop the tower, piercing the mist with a steady glow. What is eerie is that the lighthouse bulb has long been disconnected, leaving the apparition completely unexplainable by conventional means. Those who witness the ghostly light describe it as different from the mechanical beam of a functioning lighthouse. It does not sweep in regular intervals. Instead, it hangs steady, as if suspended by unseen hands, cutting through the fog like a silent warning to those navigating the waters below. Some fishermen report seeing it rise and fall, almost mimicking the keeper's movements as he once climbed the stairs. Others say the light flares briefly, then dims, as if reacting to the presence of onlookers, almost acknowledging their attention. Visitors approaching the tower often experience a chilling atmosphere long before the light appears. The air becomes unnaturally cold, and a heavy stillness seems to settle over the marshes surrounding the lighthouse. Shadows appear to shift along the walls and railings, though no one is there. Many report the sensation of being watched, a spectral awareness that follows them as they ascend the lighthouse steps or walk along the base. Even on sunny days, some say the tower radiates an inexplicable energy, an aura that cannot be measured but is felt keenly by anyone nearby. At night, the haunting becomes more pronounced. Boaters navigating the channel often report a steady glow appearing on the horizon, guiding them as if a human hand is holding the lantern aloft. As they approach, the light seems to retreat slightly, maintaining a spectral distance. Some say the keeper's ghost uses the flame to continue his duty, eternally ensuring the safety of sailors, even though decades have passed since his death. The combination of mist, darkness, and the ghostly light creates an unsettling but awe-inspiring sight, one that has inspired countless stories among locals, tourists, and historians alike. There are also reports of sounds accompanying the apparition. Visitors claim to hear the creak of the spiral staircase, the subtle tapping of boots on metal or wooden stairs, and the faint jingle of lantern chains swinging, as if someone were moving along the platform above. Some even report hearing low whispers, like a voice murmuring instructions or warnings, though no one is present to speak. Divers and fishermen have noticed a similar phenomenon along the shoreline, a slight ripple in the water where no current exists, as though the ghostly keeper is signaling the safety of passing vessels or keeping watch over hidden shoals. Photographs taken around St. Mark's Lighthouse occasionally capture anomalies that defy explanation. In long exposures, during foggy nights, a faint glow is often seen hovering above the lantern room. Shadows sometimes appear along staircases or railings, though the tower itself is empty. Longtime residents swear that these images are not the result of camera malfunctions, but proof of a presence that continues to inhabit the lighthouse. Those who encounter the light or hear the footsteps often leave with a lingering sense of awe and unease, as if they have glimpsed the continuation of a duty so sacred that it transcends life itself. The haunting of St. Mark's Lighthouse is a story of devotion, sacrifice, and eternal vigilance. The keeper who died, clutching his lantern, ensured that the light would never die, and many believe his spirit has carried that responsibility forward. On foggy nights, when the waters are hidden in gray and shadows creep along the marshes, his ghostly flame pierces the mist, a silent guardian guiding the living and honoring the dead. Sailors, tourists, and locals alike continue to recount experiences of seeing the light, feeling the cold presence, and sensing the footsteps along the tower, a reminder that St. Mark's Lighthouse is more than stone, and metallit is a testament to a keeper whose duty outlasted mortality. Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse. Standing tall on the barrier island between Pompano Beach and the Intracoastal Waterway, is a modern beacon with a history that contrasts sharply with its sleek exterior. Built in 1919, the lighthouse has long served as a guide for vessels navigating the busy waters of Broward County. its bright light sweeping steadily across the inlet to warn sailors of shifting sandbars and treacherous currents. Yet despite its contemporary appearance and reliable operation, the lighthouse is known among local mariners and Coast Guard personnel for something far less tangible, a persistent, unsettling haunting that seems to defy explanation. Those who have spent time at the lighthouse or in the surrounding facilities report unusual experiences, often beginning with subtle sounds that grow impossible to ignore. Crewmen stationed nearby frequently claim to hear the echo of heavy boots on the steel steps leading up to the lantern room. Even when no one is present, the rhythmic clanging resonates through the structure, as if someone is pacing the tower, checking equipment, or performing nightly duties that have long been abandoned. On quiet nights, these sounds are unmistakable, reverberating over the inlet with an eerie clarity that chills the spine. The haunting extends beyond footsteps. Chains have been reported clanging unexpectedly, often coinciding with the movement of shadows or changes in the lighthouse's light pattern. Some crewmen swear that the metal rings, used historically for securing supplies and lantern equipment, rattle without cause, responding to a presence invisible to the naked eye. Others describe a subtle vibration through the steel framework, like the tower itself is alive and breathing, responding to some unseen rhythm. Attempts to explain the phenomena with wind, tides, or mechanical issues often fall short. As the lighthouse is carefully maintained and these events occur sporadically, without pattern or warning, the light itself seems to possess a will of its own. On certain nights, visitors and personnel have noticed that the automatic cycling of the beacon becomes erratic. Instead of its normal steady rotation, the light may flash suddenly, pause for an unusual interval, or sweep in a jagged, almost deliberate rhythm. Those present often report a distinct sense that someone or something is adjusting it manually, even though no human is present. Some witnesses claim that during these erratic cycles, the tower feels charged with energy, a tangible presence that fills the steel stairwells and observation decks with an almost suffocating awareness. Shadowy figures are a common sight as well. Observers have occasionally glimpsed tall, indistinct forms moving along the catwalks or near the base of the tower. These figures appear for only a few moments, vanishing when approached or illuminated by a flashlight. Crewmen describe a feeling of being watched, an invisible gaze following them as they move through the lighthouse grounds. Some believe these shadows are the remnants of former keepers, personnel who once maintained the light and now remain bound to it in spectral form, continuing their duty beyond death. The combination of visual, auditory, and tactile experiences creates a complex haunting that is both subtle and deeply unsettling. Historical records provide clues to the lighthouse's eerie behavior. The Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse has seen generations of keepers, each tasked with maintaining the light and ensuring the safety of vessels entering and leaving the inlet. Though the tower is now automated, stories persist of keepers who became so devoted to their duty that their presence lingered after death. Local folklore claims that some of these men, unwilling to abandon their post, continue their rounds in ghostly form. Their steps on the steel stairs, the clang of chains, and the sudden erratic flashes of the beacon may all be manifestations of that enduring vigilance. A spectral continuation of responsibilities long thought obsolete. Those who venture near the lighthouse after dark often experience the full range of its haunting. The steel stairs amplify each sound, making even the faintest creak or shuffle echo like a thunderclap. The clang of chains can startle visitors, seeming to come from directly above or below. Though the tower is empty, shadows move in peripheral vision, vanishing when confronted, and the erratic light creates an otherworldly atmosphere, casting long, angular patterns across the surrounding sand and water. Many describe a feeling of being observed, a quiet pressure on the chest, or the sensation that time itself slows, as if the lighthouse exists outside normal perception. Photographs taken at Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse often show anomalies that defy explanation. Long exposures reveal faint streaks of light, shadows that shift between frames, or subtle reflections in the windows of the lantern room where no physical presence exists. Some crewmen report seeing orbs of light drifting along the catwalks or hovering near the base, often coinciding with sounds of footsteps or chain movements. These images and observations reinforce the legend that the lighthouse is more than a navigational, is a place where the past persists, where the devotion of keepers past is etched into the very steel of the tower. The haunting of Hillsboro Inlet Lighthouse is a story of devotion, duty, and persistence beyond death. While the lighthouse continues to serve its practical purpose, it also serves as a reminder that some obligations are never abandoned. The lights, the steps, and the chains may all act independently of natural law, a reflection of spirits committed to their task for eternity. Visitors who experience these phenomena often leave with an unsettling sense that the lighthouse is alive in ways that are invisible yet undeniable, a structure where history and the supernatural intersect. Key West Lighthouse rises gracefully above the southernmost tip of Florida, its white tower standing amid swaying palm trees and the nearby graves of sailors and keepers long past. Built in the 19th century, it has guided vessels through the treacherous waters surrounding Key West for generations. During the day, it radiates a sense of calm, a historic monument, bathed in sun and ocean breezes, and visitors often admire the view from its spiral staircase and observation deck. Yet as night falls, particularly around midnight, the lighthouse transforms from a serene landmark into a place heavy with spectral presence, unsettling even the most skeptical of tourists. Visitors recount that the moment they step onto the spiral staircase after dark, a sudden chill permeates the air. The warmth of Key West's tropical nights vanishes, replaced by an unnatural cold that seems to seep through clothing and skin. Some described it as an invisible hand pressing against their shoulders, guiding them upward, urging them to keep climbing despite fear. The sensation is fleeting for some, but for others, it is accompanied by whisper-soft, unintelligible murmurs that echo lightly off the walls of the tower. Many feel a silent pressure, a presence behind them that insists on their ascent, even when the staircase seems empty. As tourists climb higher, the air grows heavier, and the temperature drops further. Footsteps echo oddly, sometimes matching their own pace and sometimes lagging behind, out of sync yet unmistakably deliberate. Those who glance back report glimpsing shadows along the staircase, indistinct shapes that vanish when confronted directly. The experience is both exhilarating and terrifying, a blend of historic wonder and supernatural dread. It is as though the lighthouse itself is alive, watching and participating in the climb, reminding visitors that this is not merely a tower of stone and iron, but a vessel for spirits long tied to the place. At the top, where the lantern room stands, the most unnerving phenomena occur. Tourists have reported seeing the figure of a woman's face appear in the glass of the lantern room. Her expression is sorrowful, her eyes brimming with silent tears that seem to reflect the light of the moon and stars. She does not speak, but her presence is undeniable, her gaze fixed upon the sea that stretches endlessly beyond the island. Some say she weeps for sailors lost to the Gulf waters, or perhaps for loved ones she never reunited with during her lifetime. Her face sometimes appears suddenly, then vanishes as if swept away by a phantom breeze, leaving only the faint trace of moisture on the glass where she once pressed her hands. The woman's apparition is not the only strange occurrence. Visitors describe an uncanny heaviness in the lantern room, a sensation that the very air is denser, charged with grief and longing. Objects that were once perfectly still may tremble slightly, and the lantern itself sometimes flickers even when it has long been decommissioned. Some tourists have felt an icy hand lightly brush their back, as if urging them to step closer to the glass or peer over the railing toward the water below. Those who succumb to the pressure report an inexplicable feeling of being connected to something older, a lingering echo of those who once climbed these stairs night after night, tending the light. Histories of the lighthouse provide context to these ghostly occurrences. Over the decades, many keepers and their families lived within or near the tower. Life was often harsh, isolated, and tied entirely to the rhythm of the sea. Accidents were common, and tragedy struck frequently, from drownings to sudden illnesses. Locals whisper that some of the spirits of keepers and their loved ones remain bound to the lighthouse, unable to leave a place that defined their existence. The woman who appears in the lantern room is said to be a keeper's wife, who mourned for sailors lost at sea and for a husband she could never save from the dangers of the waters. Her grief anchored her to the tower, and she continues to manifest at the precise hour of midnight, when the boundary between past and present is thinnest. The haunting is not limited to visual experiences. Those who linger at the top of the lighthouse often hear soft weeping carried by the wind, mingled with a distant crash of waves against the shore. Sometimes it is accompanied by a faint scent of salt water and old flowers, as if the lighthouse itself is remembering the lives it has touched. Some claim to hear footsteps pacing the lantern room, or whispers encouraging them to stay and witness the scene, though no one is physically present. It is an intimate haunting, one that engages multiple senses and leaves an impression that lingers long after visitors descend the spiral staircase. Long exposures sometimes reveal a blurred figure standing near the railing or a glowing outline that does not correspond to any visitor. These images, while subtle, reinforce the accounts of those who have felt unseen hands, heard whispered urgings, or seen the sorrowful woman in the glass. Even for skeptics, the cumulative weight of these reports creates an undeniable sense that the Key West Lighthouse is more than a navigational landmark. It is a conduit for lingering spirits. The haunting of the Key West Lighthouse is a story of sorrow, vigilance, and the enduring connection between the living and the lost. Though surrounded by tropical beauty and graveyard silence, the tower becomes a stage for spectral presence at midnight. Visitors who climb its spiral staircase feel the cold press of unseen hands, hear whispers that defy explanation, and glimpse a woman mourning silently in the lantern glass. It is a place where history and the supernatural converge, and where the sea itself seems to keep vigil over those who never returned. Port Boca Grande Lighthouse stands solemnly on Gasparilla Island, its white tower and classic red lantern a striking contrast to the soft sand and swaying palms of southwest Florida. Built in the late 19th century, the lighthouse has long guided vessels through the treacherous waters of Charlotte Harbor, warning sailors of shifting sandbars and hidden reefs. Its role as a guardian of the inlet has remained constant, but over the decades, the lighthouse has become a sentinel for something far more mysterious than maritime safety. Locals and fishermen alike speak of shadows, apparitions, and inexplicable lights that haunt the area, particularly as dusk settles over the Gulf of Mexico. Stories of the lighthouse's hauntings begin with the keepers themselves. Two men who tended the light decades ago died under tragic circumstances while living at the post. The first, a seasoned keeper, succumbed to illness while performing his nightly rounds. The second vanished during a storm. His body never recovered, leaving behind only the lantern he had dutifully lit for years. But it is the third keeper whose presence lingers most vividly. Witnesses describe a man in full uniform pacing the porch as if keeping a solemn vigil, his lantern swinging in an eerie rhythm despite the light being long decommissioned. The apparition seems almost alive, moving with purpose, as though still dedicated to guiding vessels safely to harbor. Fishermen are often the first to encounter him. At dusk, when the sky is painted in shades of amber and violet, they report seeing a warm, glowing light swinging from the lighthouse tower, visible even from the water. Many take comfort in its presence, assuming it is the beacon still in operation. Yet, when they attempt to approach, the lighthouse appears dark and silent. Windows reveal nothing. Doors remain firmly shut. The glowing lantern seems to float independently, moving as if carried by the ghostly keeper, drawing the curious closer to the shore while remaining untouchable. This optical phenomenon has puzzled locals for generations, reinforcing the belief that the keeper's spirit never left the tower. Visitors who step onto the grounds at night encounter a different kind of unease. The porch, where the spectral keeper is said to pace, carries a subtle vibration underfoot, a presence felt rather than seen at first. A cold breeze, out of sync with the warm Gulf air, often sweeps through the area, sending shivers down the spine. Footsteps echo faintly on the wooden planks, matching the cadence of someone patrolling the lighthouse. Those who dare to linger report a sense of being observed, a quiet pressure at their back, and sometimes the unmistakable creak of a swinging lantern, though there is no metal frame or rope in motion. The lighthouse itself seems to hum with energy. Some visitors notice a faint glow emanating from the windows at night, a soft illumination that does not correspond with electricity or any known light source. Others report hearing distant sounds, the scraping of metal on wood, the subtle clanging of tools, or the whispered commands of someone overseeing the light's maintenance. It is as if the tower has absorbed the devotion and rituals of the keepers and continues to enact them autonomously. Even without human intervention, the building seems alive with the echoes of duty, its stone walls and wooden beams resonating with the efforts of those long gone. Historical accounts lend weight to these spectral encounters. The first two keepers died in the line of duty, their lives intertwined with the lighthouse's operation. The third, whose presence is most pronounced today, was reputedly meticulous, obsessively ensuring the light never failed. Story suggests that his dedication was so absolute, he may have bound himself to the tower, even in death. The rhythmic pacing, the swinging lantern, and the inexplicable glow all align with the habits he maintained while alive, as though his spirit continues to perform the nightly vigil he once undertook with unwavering discipline. Encounters are not limited to visual sightings. Some visitors report a sudden drop in temperature, the sensation of an unseen hand brushing lightly against their back, or the faint sound of fabric rustling as if someone is walking closely behind them. Others claim to hear whispers carried on the wind, words of warning or instruction lost to time, echoing through the surrounding palms and over the quiet sand. These phenomena create an intimate haunting, one that is felt in the body and mind as much as it is seen, leaving witnesses with an unforgettable sense of presence and vigilance. Photographs and videos occasionally capture anomalies that defy explanation. Shadows appear on the porch even when no one is there. Lanterns in long exposure shots sometimes leave trails of light in patterns that suggest deliberate movement. Some frames reveal faint outlines of a figure in uniform, the details blurred yet unmistakable, a man holding a lantern, pacing the tower's steps. Such evidence, while subtle, reinforces the stories of locals and visitors who experience the lighthouse's uncanny energy firsthand. The haunting of Port Boca Grande Lighthouse is a story of duty and devotion persisting beyond death. It is a reminder that some souls remain tethered to their life's purpose, unable or unwilling to leave behind the responsibilities they once held sacred. For the ghostly keeper, the lighthouse is eternal, the lantern an unending task, and the tower a place where the sea and memory converge. Fishermen at dusk, tourists on the porch, or night wanderers along the shore are all participants in a centuries-old ritual, observing a vigilance that transcends mortality. Cape St. George Lighthouse stands on the western tip of St. George Island, a beacon of resilience amid the shifting sands and windswept shores of Florida's Gulf Coast. Though the lighthouse has collapsed and been rebuilt multiple times over the centuries, its story is as much about mystery as it is about maritime safety. Each reconstruction has restored its white walls and red lantern room, but locals whisper that some presence always returns with the structure, a spirit as tied to the lighthouse as the bricks and mortar themselves. Tourists, photographers, and night wanderers tell chilling stories of strange sounds, shadowed figures, and inexplicable phenomena that occur after dark, making Cape St. George Lighthouse one of the most haunted sites along the Gulf Coast. Visitors report that the tower seems alive at night. A soft hum drifts across the sands, subtle at first, but insistent enough to draw attention. Some describe it as a low vibration in the ground, a resonance that is almost musical yet impossibly eerie. Others claim it carries the sound of a distant voice, caught in the wind, whispering across the dunes and through the grasses that line the beach. Those who pause to listen often report an unsettling feeling, a sense that the sound is not random but deliberate, as if the lighthouse itself is speaking. One of the most widely circulated accounts involves modern technology. A drone, flown by a local videographer, captured footage of the lighthouse at night. As the drone circled the tower, a shadowy figure appeared in the lantern room. It was tall, indistinct, and yet unmistakably human in shape. The figure stood motionless, staring down at the sand below, as if observing something unseen. When the drone moved closer, the figure vanished, leaving the lantern room empty and dark. The footage has been examined extensively, and no explanation, no trick of the camera, lighting, or reflection has satisfied investigators. The locals, however, are unsurprised. They say the lighthouse always brings back what belongs to it, a silent guardian of the coast that refuses to be ignored. Visitors to the grounds often experience subtle, yet deeply unsettling phenomena. A cold wind sweeps across the beach, even on nights that are otherwise calm. Soft thuds echo through the tower, as if footsteps are pacing the spiraling staircase when no one is present. Some claim to feel a brush of air or even a fleeting touch at their shoulders, gentle yet insistent, as if urging them toward the lighthouse or warning them to leave. The sensation is disorienting, combining fear with a strange fascination, leaving those who experience it questioning the line between the living and the spectral. The lighthouse's repeated collapses and reconstructions seem almost to amplify its haunted reputation. Each time it is rebuilt, locals report that the humming resumes, shadows reappear, and objects near the lantern room behave oddly. Weathered windows sometimes fog inexplicably, despite calm conditions, and doors that should be locked or sealed creak open as though touched by an unseen hand. Some visitors have caught glimpses of shapes moving in the peripheral edges of their vision, only to find nothing when they turn to look directly. The phenomenon is subtle but persistent, lending the impression that the lighthouse remembers, and whatever is bound to it is patient, observing, and eternal. Historical records suggest that several keepers and construction workers died in the area, sometimes under mysterious circumstances. Storms claimed lives, accidents occurred during rebuilding efforts, and the sands themselves shifted to conceal evidence of human tragedy. Some locals believe that the shadow figure seen in the lantern room is connected to one of these past tragedies: a keeper who perished while tending the light, or a worker whose life ended during the reconstruction. The consistent presence of the figure, observed across decades and even captured by drones, strengthens the theory that the lighthouse houses more than just memories. It houses spirits tethered to its purpose and its site. Photographs and personal accounts reinforce the eerie atmosphere. Tourists taking long exposure images report faint humanoid shapes, orbs of light, and subtle distortions that appear within the lantern room. At night, some see a faint glow that traces the outline of the tower, even when the power is off, as if the structure itself radiates energy. These anomalies often disappear when examined in daylight, leaving witnesses to rely solely on memory and the impressions captured in their photographs. The combination of sound, touch, temperature change, and visual phenomena creates a hauntingly immersive experience that has become the subject of local, folklore, and paranormal study alike. The haunting of Cape St. George Lighthouse is not violent or overtly malevolent, but it is insistent. It is the story of something bound by duty and tragedy, returning again and again with each reconstruction. The hum in the wind, the shadow in the lantern room, the inexplicable cold, and brushes of aural suggest a consciousness lingering over the sands, watching, waiting, perhaps guiding or guarding in a way that only it understands. Visitors are both unnerved and captivated, drawn to witness a presence that refuses to be contained or forgotten. At its core, the lighthouse embodies persistence and the uncanny. The structure itself has been rebuilt multiple times, yet the spectral elements remain constant. A reminder that some places carry more than brick and mortar. They carry memory, grief, and devotion that defy time. The shadow figure, pacing silently in the lantern room, serves as a symbol of this enduring connection. A ghostly sentinel tied to the coast and the lighthouse it inhabits, even as the Gulf waves lap against the shore and the wind whispers through the dunes. The lighthouse hums, watching and waiting for those who dare to listen and look. Built in the late 19th century, The lighthouse has guided countless sailors safely past dangerous shoals and shifting currents. Its beacon a symbol of safety and reliability, yet beyond its practical purpose. The tower holds a reputation that has made it one of the most haunted sites in the state. Locals, tourists, and paranormal enthusiasts alike report strange phenomena, unexplained lights, ghostly sounds, and lingering presences that hint at tragedies and secrets hidden within its walls. Security footage from the lighthouse often captures the most inexplicable occurrences. These orbs move with deliberate, fluid motions, defying natural explanations. Some nights they appear stationary, almost as if observing the ocean below, while at other times they dart rapidly along the upper windows, vanishing when anyone attempts to approach. Staff members insist that the lights are not reflections or camera artifacts, noting that the orbs sometimes appear in angles impossible for natural light to reach. The phenomenon has become a subject of fascination for ghost hunters and thrill seekers, drawing visitors who hope to witness the ethereal display for themselves. Visitors report more than visual oddities. The lighthouse's spiraling stairwell, which stretches hundreds of steps to the lantern room, is frequently cited as a site of supernatural activity. Many claim to hear the jangle of chains echoing in the stairwell, a sound that seems entirely out of place in the empty tower. These sounds are often accompanied by faint, anguished screams that reverberate off the stone walls, sending chills down the spines of those climbing the stairs. Witnesses believe these are echoes of a worker who tragically fell to his death during the lighthouse's construction, a fate that left an indelible mark on the tower's history. Some say his spirit lingers, bound to the structure, eternally retracing the steps of the fatal accident. Tourists frequently report sudden drops in temperature, even during warm nights along the coast. A subtle pressure is often felt on their shoulders, or a fleeting brush against their arms, sensations that vanish as quickly as they appear. Visitors describe an uncanny awareness, as though unseen eyes are tracking their movements up the narrow stairwell or across the observation deck. Some recount feeling a strange pull toward the top of the tower, an irresistible urge to climb despite exhaustion or fear, as though the lighthouse itself beckons them closer to its secrets. The lantern room at the summit, where the light once rotated to guide ships, is often described as the epicenter of paranormal activity. At night, some visitors claim the glass panes fog inexplicably, even when the air is still and humidity is low. Others have reported ghostly figures standing at the observation ledge, glimpsed in the corner of their eyes but gone when they look directly. Occasionally, faint whispers can be heard, snippets of words that seem lost to time, warnings, directions, or cries for help. Many believe these sounds are the lingering voice of the construction worker, or perhaps multiple spirits connected to the lighthouse's long and arduous history. Historical records provide context for these spectral tales. During the late 1800s, the construction of the lighthouse was a monumental effort. Workers faced harsh weather, treacherous conditions, and the ever-present danger of working at dizzying heights. One laborer fell from the stairwell during construction, his body lost to the depths below, leaving only whispers of his existence. Others died from accidents, illness, or exposure, and their stories have become intertwined with the lighthouse's history. It is perhaps these accumulated tragedies that fuel the eerie phenomena reported by visitors today. From spectral lights to the sounds of chains and distant screams, photographic and video evidence has added weight to these accounts. Long exposure shots often reveal small orbs and streaks of light near the top of the tower, as if the air itself is charged with unseen energy. Some images show faint silhouettes in the stairwell or observation deck, suggesting the presence of figures that defy physical explanation. Even when the photographs are carefully analyzed to rule out reflection, lens flare, or dust particles, the anomalies persist. Many paranormal researchers consider Ponce de Leon Inlet Lighthouse a prime example of a site where historical tragedy has left an imprint on the environment, manifesting as visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena. Visitors climbing the stairs at night often describe an overwhelming sense of history pressing upon them. The repetitive spiraling steps echo with unseen footsteps. The chains jangle without cause, and the lighthouse seems to breathe in tandem with the wind. At the top, the view of the Atlantic is breathtaking, yet the atmosphere carries a weight of melancholy and vigilance, as though the spirits present continue to fulfill their roles, watching over the water just as they did in life. The combination of visual orbs, ghostly sounds, and tactile sensations makes the experience deeply immersive, leaving a lasting impression on those who dare to explore after dark. Its reputation for hauntings adds a layer of mystique to its imposing height and architectural grandeur. The glowing orbs, the chains in the stairwell, the screams echoing through the tower, and the spectral figure glimpsed in shadows all point to a consciousness that endures beyond death. Whether a protective presence, a restless spirit, or a combination of both, the lighthouse continues to watch over the inlet, ensuring that both the living and the departed are never truly alone. Sightings Lighthouse rises from the turquoise waters off the coast of Key West, a sentinel perched on a coral reef that has guided countless sailors through treacherous waters. Built in the 19th century, it is unique in its location. Partially submerged at high tide and surrounded by the shifting currents of the Gulf of Mexico. Though it has long ceased operation, its reputation for strange and unsettling activity has grown over the decades, making it one of Florida's most mysterious maritime landmarks. Divers, fishermen, and nighttime visitors all report phenomena that defy explanation, lights that appear and vanish, shapes moving beneath the waves, and a presence that seems to linger long after the last keeper departed. One of the most commonly reported phenomena involves the lighthouse's light itself. Though the beacon has been extinguished for decades, divers exploring the reef at night claim to see a sweeping beam cut through the darkness of the ocean floor. This beam appears exactly as it would have during the lighthouse's operational days, rotating slowly, illuminating patches of coral and sand in its path. The eerie part is what it reveals. Figures, often human in shape, standing motionless on the seabed or crouching near the coral formations. These figures are always fleeting. When approached, they vanish instantly, leaving nothing behind but the murky water and the echo of the diver's own movements. Some describe the sensation as being observed, a silent presence aware of their every move. Divers report more than visual disturbances. Many speak of an oppressive stillness around the lighthouse, a weight in the water that seems to press against their bodies as they descend. Temperature drops are common, inexplicable in the warm Gulf waters, and currents often shift unnaturally, as though guided by unseen hands. Sounds travel in peculiar ways, too. Some divers report faint whispers, indistinct but undeniably human, echoing through the water. Others hear soft thuds or scraping noises from the reef below, which stop abruptly if they try to investigate. These auditory phenomena add to the sense of otherworldly occupation, as though the lighthouse, long abandoned, is still populated by those who once served Itor, perhaps by something that claims it now. Local fishermen share similar accounts. Late at night, they sometimes see a faint white light sweeping across the ocean, reflecting in the dark waters. No vessel or lighthouse operation is nearby, yet the beam moves in a precise arc, as if a keeper were present, dutifully scanning the reef for ships. Some claim to have glimpsed figures waiting in the shallow waters, human in silhouette but impossible to approach. When their boats drift closer, the figures dissolve into mist or shadow, leaving only the gentle lapping of waves against the reef. Stories circulate among the Key West community of fishermen whose navigation lights flicker and die in the presence of the lighthouse, as though some unseen force is interfering with their equipment. The history of Sightings Lighthouse provides context that makes these hauntings all the more plausible. The lighthouse was built on a dangerous coral reef, where storms and shipwrecks were frequent. Keepers worked in isolation for long stretches, enduring storms, hurricanes, and the ever-present threat of drowning. Several tragic incidents occurred over the years, including drownings, accidents, and a few mysterious disappearances. The repetitive pattern of death and hardship has fueled local legends, suggesting that the spirits of the keepers or the victims of the treacherous reef remain bound to the lighthouse and the waters surrounding it. Stories from divers consistently highlight a sense of time distortion, Some report that during night dives, their dive computers show hours passing in what felt like minutes. Others describe seeing echoes of the past, flickers of old ships, lanterns moving across the reef, and shadowy figures performing tasks as if the lighthouse was still fully operational. These phenomena suggest more than simple hallucinations or optical illusions. They point to a lingering presence, an imprint of history, replaying itself in the darkness beneath the waves. Sightings are not limited to visual or auditory experiences. Several divers recount tactile sensations, brief brushes against their arms or legs, currents that seem to push them in particular directions, and sudden feelings of weightlessness, followed by pressure. Some interpret these as warnings, guiding them away from danger, while others feel an almost malevolent attention, as if the lighthouse itself is testing intruders, judging their intent. Even seasoned divers, accustomed to the Gulf's currents and marine life, report that these sensations are unmistakably unnatural and profoundly unsettling. Photographers and underwater videographers have documented some of these occurrences. Long exposure footage occasionally captures ghostly figures lingering near the base of the lighthouse or among the coral formations. Lights appear in locations where no underwater equipment exists, moving with purpose, as though scanning the reef. Though skeptics argue for lens flare or particulate reflection, the consistency of reports across decades and multiple witnesses gives weight to the lighthouse's haunted reputation. Sand Key Lighthouse remains an enduring symbol of mystery and maritime history. Its partially submerged structure, the remnants of its past keepers, and the repeated tragedies that occurred on its surrounding reef create a potent mixture of history and the supernatural. The sweeping light that appears after dark, the vanishing figures on the ocean floor, the unexplained currents and whispers all suggest a presence that refuses to let go, a watchful entity tied to both the lighthouse and the water it guards. Cedar Key Lighthouse stands quietly on Ot Key, a solitary sentinel amid the ruins of a town long swallowed by time and tide. Once a thriving port in the 19th century, Ot Key now lies abandoned, its streets erased by storms, neglect, and the slow encroachment of the Gulf waters. Only the lighthouse remains, perched on the shoreline, accessible only by boat, a relic of maritime history and a source of strange and enduring tales. Despite being decommissioned decades ago, the lighthouse continues to attract attention, not for its navigational role, but for the mysterious phenomena reported by locals, kayakers, and nocturnal visitors who sense something more than stone and mortar within its walls. Kayakers are often the first to notice its eerie activity. As the sun dips toward the horizon, they report seeing the lighthouse glow faintly, a soft amber light that seems to pulse with a rhythm all its own. The glow is subtle but unmistakable, cutting through the evening haze and reflecting on the calm waters around the key. It is not connected to electricity or solar power. The lighthouse has been dark for decades. Witnesses describe the effect as organic, almost breathing, a luminous presence that feels alive. Many refer to it as the breath of the island, a pulse that seems to acknowledge the living while carrying whispers of the past. Those who approach the lighthouse by boat often feel a profound sense of isolation. Despite the calm surroundings, the water is placid, the wind gentle, yet an inexplicable weight presses on visitors. Some describe the sensation as a mix of awe and unease, as if the lighthouse itself is aware of their presence, measuring their intent before allowing them to draw closer. Small ripples appear on the water with no wind. Shadows stretch and contract along the shoreline, and occasionally, kayakers hear faint creaks and groans from the lighthouse structure itself, as though the building is adjusting, alive with memory. Local legends surrounding Cedar Key Lighthouse amplify the sense of mystery. Stories tell of shipwrecks, storms, and disappearances that claimed the lives of sailors and townsfolk alike. It is said that during a hurricane in the late 1800s, a sudden storm struck without warning, swallowing the town's wharves and buildings almost entirely. Many lives were lost, and those who survived reported seeing figures moving along the shore, guiding the lost to safety or warning them away from danger. Some locals believe that the lighthouse now carries the echoes of those spirits, projecting the faint light to remind the living of what once existed and what remains unseen beneath the waters and sands. Visitors have reported seeing more than just a glow. Some claim to witness figures moving near the ruins around the lighthouse, shapes that vanish when approached. Occasionally, reflections of people appear in the water, even when no one is present. Silhouettes that seem to watch silently from the shoreline or the old foundations of former homes. Kayakers tell of feeling unseen hands rush past their arms, or the subtle tug of a current guiding them closer to or away from the lighthouse. Sensations that vanish when they try to pinpoint the source. These experiences are often accompanied by a low hum or whisper, faint enough to be mistaken for the wind, yet persistent and distinctly human in tone. At night, the lighthouse is at its most enigmatic. The glow becomes more pronounced, and those approaching by kayak or small boat report a sense of time distortion. Seconds stretch into minutes. The stars seem to twirl overhead, and the water below appears simultaneously shallow and infinitely deep. Some claim to hear footsteps on the decaying docks, soft but deliberate, and the occasional sound of a door opening and closing. Though the lighthouse has long been unspit, the combination of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates an atmosphere that is both beautiful and unnerving, leaving visitors with the undeniable impression that the lighthouse is alive in some way, aware of the world around it, and protective of the island's history. The history of Atsina, Oti Key itself, adds depth to these tales. Once a bustling hub for shipping and trade, the island thrived until a combination of natural disasters and economic decline caused the town to vanish almost entirely. Buildings sank beneath the waves, streets disappeared, and memories faded, leaving only fragments of life preserved in stories, photographs, and the lighthouse. Many believe that the lighthouse functions as a repository of those memories, projecting the faint light as a message, a pulse of continuity amid the erasure of the town. In this interpretation, the glow is not a warning to sailors, but a whisper to the living, that history, like memory, persists even when its physical form has vanished. Photographs taken by evening visitors often capture the lighthouse's glow, appearing in long exposure shots as a soft, amber halo hovering over the ruins. Some images show fleeting shadows along the shoreline or faint silhouettes of figures among the foundations of former buildings. These images are frequently dismissed as lens flares or artifacts, but the consistency of reports from multiple witnesses over decades lends credence to the belief that something extraordinary resides on Atsina, Oti Key. For those who venture to Cedar Key Lighthouse, the experience is more than a sightseeing adventure. They encounter history, memory, and something that feels like consciousness embedded within the very structure. The faint glow at sunset, the whispers on the water, the vanishing figures on the shore contribute to a sense that the lighthouse is alive in ways beyond explanation. It is a beacon not for ships, but for the stories and spirits of a town that no longer exists. The Gasparilla Range Rear Lighthouse, standing quietly on the northern end of Boca Grande, is one of Florida's lesser-known maritime sentinels. Yet it carries a reputation that is deeply unsettling. Unlike its famous neighbor, the Port Boca Grande Lighthouse, this rear light has remained inactive for decades, its beacon extinguished, and its structure slowly weathering beneath the relentless sun and sea winds. Yet, when storms brew on the Gulf horizon, something strange happens. Local residents and fishermen consistently report a phenomenon that defies explanation. Both the front and rear range lights suddenly flicker to life, casting their beams across the water, even though there is no power, no keeper, and no reason for them to illuminate at all. Old sailors are particularly respectful, if not wary, of the lighthouse. They tell stories passed down through generations, claiming that these mysterious activations are not simply equipment malfunctions. Rather, they are messages from the dead, a warning system created by the spirits of past keepers and shipwrecked sailors. Before electricity, before modern weather forecasting, these lights were essential for guiding ships safely into Boca Grande's harbor. The lore goes that even after the lighthouses were decommissioned, their purpose persisted. The dead continued to warn of danger, and when hurricanes gather in the Gulf, the lights awaken, casting spectral beams across the darkening waters. Witnesses describe seeing the beams cut through the storm clouds with startling clarity, a ghostly twin of the light that once guided mariners. The flickering is irregular, sometimes subtle, other times strong enough to reflect off the water for miles. Those on boats nearby report a strange sensation, as though the light is alive, aware of them. Some claim to feel a chill in the humid Gulf air, or the brief tug of wind that seems to push their vessels along, guiding them away from unseen reefs. The effect is both mesmerizing and unnerving, combining the natural drama of an approaching hurricane with the undeniable presence of something otherworldly. Local fishermen speak of the lighthouse with reverent caution. They tell of nights when the Gulf is calm, but the clouds low, and suddenly the lights ignite. Even experienced captains, who know the area intimately, hesitate to sail when they witness the phenomenon. Some say that when they see the lights, it is best to return to shore immediately, regardless of storm forecasts. They recall instances where boats that ignored the ghostly warning faced mechanical failures, sudden squalls, or the eerie sensation of being watched. There is no logical explanation, yet the consistency of the stories over decades lends credibility to the idea that the lighthouses themselves have become sentient, or at least vessels of the spirits that once tended them. On shore, witnesses add another layer of mystery. Residents living near the Boca Grande Causeway often spot the rear lighthouse S-light flickering intermittently. During hurricane season, children report seeing two beams of light stretching across the water, moving independently as though searching for something. Dogs howl inexplicably, and radios crackle with interference during these nights. Some say that the lights are more than warnings, they are guardians, patrolling the shoreline and ensuring that those at sea are not caught unaware. Those brave enough to venture close to the lighthouse during these flickers often leave with stories of a presence that feels both protective and intensely aware. Historical accounts add weight to these eerie claims. Records show that hurricanes frequently devastated Boca Grande, taking both ships and lives before modern forecasting existed. Lighthouse keepers played vital roles in warning vessels of danger, sometimes sacrificing their own safety to ensure sailors' survival. Many perished in storms, their bodies never recovered, leaving only the lighthouses as silent witnesses. Locals believe these keepers never abandoned their posts entirely. Even in death, they continue their vigil, their spirits intertwined with the mechanisms of the lighthouse. The flickering beams, they say, are echoes of centuries of vigilance, a continuation of a sacred duty beyond mortality. Occasional visitors report even stranger phenomena. Boaters navigating close to the rear light sometimes see shadows moving across the tower or on the dunes behind it. Figures appear briefly, dressed in old maritime garb, and then vanish as if absorbed by the structure itself. Some swear they hear footsteps on the stairs, doors creaking, or the faint sound of distant orders being shouted over a storm, even when no hurricane approaches. Others describe an oppressive, heavy atmosphere around the lighthouse, as though the air itself is charged with energy, waiting for the next storm to awaken it. Photographers and storm chasers have attempted to document the phenomenon over the years. Long exposure shots sometimes capture faint beams streaking across the dark water, visible despite the complete absence of electrical power. Nighttime videos occasionally show subtle, unexplained motion around the lighthouse shapes that vanish upon closer inspection, flickering lights that seem alive, while skeptics point to optical illusions, reflections, or residual currents. The sheer number of consistent reports over decades makes it difficult to dismiss the stories entirely. The Gasparilla Range Rear Lighthouse stands as a reminder that not all light can be explained by electricity or technology. Even in decommission, even after decades of inactivity, the structure holds a presence that resonates with the history of the sea, the memory of those who built and tended it, and the dangers that continue to lie in the Gulf. The flickering lights are not merely legends, they are warnings, echoes, and perhaps a testament to the loyalty of spirits who never abandoned their post. Garden Key Lighthouse rises from the isolated waters of the dry Tortugas, a small outpost in the Gulf of Mexico, surrounded by turquoise waves and the skeletal ruins of Fort Jefferson. Though its exterior appears serene, almost picturesque against the horizon, the lighthouse carries a dark and restless energy. It is not the structure itself that draws attention, but the history it embodies. During the Civil War, Garden Key and Fort Jefferson served as a prison for captured soldiers, holding them in harsh and unforgiving conditions. Disease, malnutrition, and despair claimed lives daily, and many perished within the fort's stone walls, never seeing freedom again. Today, visitors to the lighthouse report experiences that suggest the spirits of these drowned soldiers remain tied to the island, their presence embedded within the crumbling masonry and the lighthouse's silent beam. Even though the lighthouse has long since been decommissioned, its legacy as a guiding light persists in unsettling ways. Rangers and visitors alike report strange phenomena, particularly at dusk and after dark. One ranger, walking along the outer ramparts, claims to have seen the lighthouse beam flash suddenly, cutting a perfect line across the water. The light was bright, unwavering, and precise. Yet, when he examined the mechanism, every gear and lens was rusted and completely inoperative. Others have corroborated similar experiences. The light flashes when no power is supplied, when no living hand could possibly have operated the ancient lenses. Those who witness it often describe a chill descending with the glow, an icy presence that lingers even after the light disappears. Visitors often report hearing more than just visual anomalies. The stone ramparts of Fort Jefferson seem to carry voices, whispers that rise and fall with the wind. Words are nearly indistinguishable, a chorus of sighs, murmurs, and muttered names, but they feel deliberate, almost communicative. Tourists describe the sensation of walking along the walls and hearing voices call out their own names, a soft echo that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. Sometimes, the whispers are accompanied by faint footsteps, moving just behind, keeping pace, yet vanishing whenever anyone turns to confront them. The combination of auditory and visual phenomena gives the impression that the lighthouse and fort are not abandoned at all, but actively inhabited by those who never left. Kayakers and boaters approaching Garden Key at twilight report a sense of being observed, even when alone. Many describe subtle, inexplicable movements at the waterline ripples, where the sea is calm. Shapes glimpsed through the waves, and figures appearing and disappearing at the edge of visibility. These experiences are rarely violent or aggressive, but profoundly unsettling. Witnesses often describe a mix of awe and dread, as though they are intruding on a space that belongs to those long dead. In this way, the lighthouse seems less like a building and more like a vessel, channeling the lingering energy of the soldiers who suffered and drowned nearby. Historical context only deepens the sense of unease. Garden Key served as both beacon and prison, a place where light and darkness existed side by side. Ships relied on the lighthouse to navigate the treacherous waters of the Gulf, yet the fort's prisoners navigated a more invisible kind of peril: starvation, disease, and the psychological torment of confinement. Many were never buried properly, their bodies left to the elements or hastily consigned to shallow graves. Locals and historians alike suggest that these unresolved deaths have tethered spirits to the key, giving them reason to return to the lighthouse, a symbolic marker of both hope and despair. Some visitors claim to have seen apparitions near the base of the lighthouse. Faint figures in Civil War uniforms appear at the edges of the ramparts, standing in silent formation or pacing the walls as though still on guard. Others report glimpsing them wading in the shallows, disappearing into the turquoise water without a ripple. Kayakers recount seeing a ghostly lantern carried along the beach, moving in ways that defy logic, casting long shadows that dissolve when approached. Photographs taken during these encounters sometimes capture inexplicable light flares or subtle shapes that resemble human figures, lending a haunting visual confirmation to the testimonies. The lighthouse's rusted gears and aged lenses contrast sharply with the activity reported by those who visit. It is as if the structure itself has become a medium, a channel for something beyond the physical world. The flashes of light, the whispers on the ramparts, and the sudden chills that accompany them all point to the lingering presence of the drowned soldiers. Unlike other haunted sites where spirits are trapped by rage or sorrow, the apparitions here appear purposeful, repeating rituals of vigilance and signaling, as though maintaining the duties they were assigned in life, now carried on through death. Visitors often describe a feeling of temporal dislocation near the lighthouse. Time seems to stretch or contract, and moments of silence can abruptly give way to faint sounds of cannon fire or clanging metal, ghostly echoes of the fort's turbulent past. Even during calm nights, the energy is palpable. The lighthouse stands as both monument and medium, an intersection between history and the spectral. Those who linger too long report heightened unease, as if the key itself is alive, breathing through the stones, the water, and the flickering light. Loggerhead Key Lighthouse stands on the western edge of the Dry Tortugas, a solitary sentinel surrounded by the endless turquoise of the Gulf of Mexico. Remote, isolated, and largely forgotten by the casual traveler, the lighthouse is nonetheless infamous among those who frequent these waters for its strange and inexplicable phenomena. Unlike more accessible beacons, Loggerhead Key seems to exist on the edge of reality itself, where history, memory, and the supernatural converge. At dusk, the lighthouse does not simply gloat, flickers with colors that defy explanation. Red and green lights dancing around the tower in patterns that seem deliberate, almost intelligent. Boaters passing nearby report seeing the colored lights moving against the wind, circling the tower in ways that no physical mechanism could produce. The spectacle is mesmerizing, beautiful, and profoundly unsettling. The lore surrounding Loggerhead Key Lighthouse stretches back nearly 2 centuries. Historical records mention a keeper who was unlike any other, referred to cryptically in journals as the Lantern Keeper of No Name. He arrived on the island in the early 1800s and tended the light with meticulous care. The journals describe him as a solitary figure, devoted entirely to the lighthouse, never leaving its walls for more than brief moments. One night, however, he vanished without a trace. His dinner remained warm on the table, his boots by the door, and his lantern fully polished. No note, no farewell, no sign of struggle. He simply disappeared. Since that night, the lighthouse has been associated with strange activity, a residual echo of the keeper's presence, or perhaps a warning for those who approach. Local boaters and frequent visitors to the Dry Tortuga speak of experiences that are as eerie as they are consistent. Many report that as the sun dips below the horizon, the lighthouse begins to flicker. The red and green lights circle the tower at varying speeds, sometimes slowly, sometimes in rapid, erratic patterns, and always against the direction of the wind. Observers claim that the lights are not random. They seem almost communicative, signaling across the water to unseen vessels or perhaps to the spirits bound to the key. Onlookers often feel a strange pull, a weight on their shoulders, as though they are being watched, measured, or evaluated by an unseen presence. The auditory phenomena are just as compelling. Some visitors describe hearing faint footsteps echoing across the lighthouse platform, moving from the base of the tower toward the lantern room, and then disappearing abruptly. Others report a low humming, a sound that rises and falls with the flickering lights, almost like a song without words. At times, whispers are audible, carried on the warm evening breeze. The words are indistinct, fragmented fragments of journal entries, broken commands, or perhaps the unfinished thoughts of the vanished lantern keeper. Boaters who have lingered near the island tell of a pressure in the air, a sudden chill that seems out of place in the tropical heat, as if the key itself remembers something long buried in time. Historical investigations lend a deeper layer to these experiences. Old maritime journals note that ships navigating near Loggerhead Key often reported phantom lights, sometimes mistaken for other vessels, but moving against currents and winds. Sailors recorded sudden shifts in compass readings, inexplicable fog patches, and a persistent sense of being guided warned by an unseen hand. Researchers studying the journals of the Lantern Keeper of No Name discovered numerous entries documenting odd lights, sudden storms, and the behavior of ships around the key. Some passages hint at a personal pact with the sea, an acknowledgement that the lighthouse's purpose might extend beyond guiding ships, that it might protect or haunt according to its own mysterious will. Modern visitors report similar experiences despite the passage of time. Kayakers, snorkelers, and small boat captains tell of approaching the lighthouse at dusk, witnessing the colored lights flicker and circle with a life of their own. The phenomenon is often accompanied by shadows moving across the island or the water, appearing briefly and then vanishing when attention focuses on them. Some claim to see a figure at the lantern room, a solitary man in an old uniform, standing motionless, his lantern swinging in rhythm with the flickering lights below. On rare occasions, photographs have captured subtle, unexplainable glows near the top of the lighthouse, or faint human silhouettes blurred into the colors, lending visual evidence to experiences that might otherwise seem like fantasy. Despite its remoteness, Loggerhead Key Lighthouse exerts a magnetic pull on those who hear of its legend. Historians, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers are drawn to its eerie glow, hoping to glimpse the colored lights or encounter the spectral presence that haunts the tower. Visitors often describe a heightened sense of history, as though standing on the edge of centuries of solitude, devotion, and tragedy. The island itself feels alive, the sands shifting in patterns almost too deliberate, the waves whispering as if in acknowledgement of those who have died, tending the light. At Loggerhead Key, the natural and the supernatural merge seamlessly. The flickering red and green lights, the figure glimpsed in the lantern room, the strange sounds and chills, they all serve as reminders that some places are bound by history, memory, and unexplainable forces. The lighthouse does not merely mark the edge of safe passage, it preserves the presence of the vanished lantern keeper and the countless sailors who once relied on his watch. It is a beacon that transcends life and death, signaling across decades, defying physics, and insisting that the story of Loggerhead Key is not yet finished. Egmont Reef Light, once a sturdy sentinel standing offshore near St. Petersburg, Florida, is now little more than a memory carved into the waters of Tampa Bay. Built decades ago to warn ships of the treacherous reef, the lighthouse served its purpose faithfully for years. Mariners relied on its beam to navigate safely, and the lightkeeper's vigilant presence became as legendary as the structure itself. But time, storms, and erosion took their toll. The lighthouse eventually collapsed, leaving only broken pilings and scattered rubble beneath the waves. Yet despite its physical absence, Egmont Reef Light refuses to vanish completely. On moonless nights, those who venture into the bay speak of experiences that defy explanation, of a lighthouse rising from the mist, whole and radiant, its light cutting across the dark waters as though the world had not changed at all. Fishermen are among the most common witnesses. They tell stories of casting nets under a dark sky, their boats drifting in silence when a ghostly glow appears on the horizon. The light is crisp, bright, and unmistakably familiar to anyone who once relied on Egmont Reef for navigation. For a few minutes, the tower seems fully intact, its walls, lantern room, and gleaming beacon projected as clearly as they were decades ago. The sailors describe a surreal clarity, a presence that is both reassuring and terrifying. Then, as silently as it came, the lighthouse dissolves into fog, leaving only the empty expanse of water and the occasional reflection of moonlight on gentle waves. The phenomenon is so precise that some swear it cannot be a trick of the eye, a mirage produced by atmospheric conditions. Historical accounts provide eerie context for these modern sightings. Egmont Reef Light was known not only for its treacherous location, but for the stories surrounding its keepers. One journal, written by a keeper who spent years alone on the platform, describes nights spent watching phantom ships approach the reef, warning them with lantern light long after they had passed. He wrote of cold winds that carried voices, faint cries that seemed to echo across the water, and shapes in the darkness that disappeared when examined closely. The journal entries end abruptly, a final page soaked and torn, leaving questions about the man's fate and the possible lingering energy of his vigil. The ghostly reappearances of Egmont Reef Light seem to echo that same dedication. Boaters and historians alike speculate that the lighthouse manifests at night to continue its original duty, tending to waters that remain just as dangerous as they were when it was first built. Some claim the light is a signal to phantom ships, spectral warnings for sailors who passed away on the reef in the past, ensuring that accidents do not repeat themselves. Others believe the phenomenon is connected to the souls of the keepers themselves, unable to leave their post even in death, rising with the fog to maintain the beacon that once guided lives. Eyewitness accounts are chillingly consistent. Many describe the lighthouse appearing out of a low-hanging mist, rising slowly like a phantom from the water. The lantern casts a steady beam across the surface, revealing faint outlines of pilings and waves, as though the bay has returned to a time long past. Those on the boats sometimes hear more than visual cues. Soft creaking of wood, the rhythmic clink of metal rails, and even faint murmurs echoing across the waves. A few fishermen recount hearing the distinct voice of a keeper calling warnings to phantom sailors, repeating phrases recorded in historical journals. Others describe an overwhelming sense of being watched, as though unseen eyes follow every movement of the boat, urging respect for a presence that refuses to fade. Scientists and skeptics have attempted to explain the phenomenon with natural theories like refraction, optical illusions over the water, atmospheric mirages caused by temperature differences. While these may account for some sightings, the consistency and frequency reported by those familiar with the area remain perplexing. Witnesses emphasize details that cannot be replicated by ordinary mirages. The shape of the lighthouse, the angle of the lantern room, the precise quality of the light beam, and even the feeling of intentionality, as if the structure knows where danger lies. Local lore weaves seamlessly with these sightings. Sailors passing by the ruins tell stories of spectral tenders, figures appearing near the old pilings, walking along invisible walkways, their lanterns swinging in rhythm with the ghostly light. Some claim to have seen shadowy silhouettes moving along the imagined decks of the lighthouse, disappearing when approached but always returning with the next wave of mist. The stories carry a mix of reverence and fear. The lighthouse is no longer merely a structure, but a guardian, a presence that transcends time and death. Even in the quiet daylight, remnants of Egmont Reef Light evoke the weight of history. Rusted pilings jut from the water like broken bones, the waves lapping at the scattered rubble. Yet at night, the bay becomes a theater where past and present blur. For a few minutes under the cover of darkness, the lighthouse returns, radiant and whole, as though determined to fulfill its purpose, despite the decay surrounding it. The effect is both beautiful and haunting, a testament to devotion beyond the grave, to a duty that refuses to be abandoned. Cape Canaveral Lighthouse stands as a striking juxtaposition of past and present, perched on the edge of Florida's Space Coast, where the roar of rockets contrasts with the steady pulse of a centuries-old sentinel. Its white walls and tall tower are modernized, surrounded by the gleaming technology of NASA and the bustle of one of the world's most advanced spaceports. Yet, despite the hum of modern machinery and the constant presence of scientists, engineers, and technicians, Cape Canaveral Lighthouse refuses to be forgotten or ignored. The past lingers here, subtle but undeniable, and those attuned to the island's hidden currents report phenomena that defy explanation. Even in the midst of rocket launches, some technicians notice strange interference with their instruments. Monitors flicker inexplicably, screens displaying static that seems to take shape, forming fleeting outlines of faces, eyes, and silent mouths. The shapes are never permanent, dissolving when examined closely, but the sense of presence remains. Engineers have recounted feeling watched while performing routine maintenance, a pressure that makes their hair stand on end, as if the air itself is charged with unseen observers. Others report hearing distant whispers when the fog rolls in from the Atlantic, soft enough that only those standing alone by the lighthouse can hear them, yet unmistakable in tone, rhythmic, almost conversational, as though someone or something is speaking just beyond comprehension. Visitors and lighthouse staff have noticed the most peculiar manifestations around the tower's base. In the corner of the eye, a faint glow sometimes appears, resembling the soft sweep of a lantern, Those who attempt to look directly often find nothing there, only the mist curling around the rocks and sand. But when unattended, the light seems to move pacing in a slow circle along the edge of the lighthouse platform. Its glow flickering like it is adjusting to the unseen environment. Some describe a sense of timing, as if the figure is counting or marking the passage of minutes, a presence tied to some long-forgotten routine of vigilance. Historical records shed light on why Cape Canaveral Lighthouse might harbor such energy. The lighthouse was first built in 1848 to guide ships safely around the treacherous cape, which had claimed countless vessels with its shifting sands and hidden reefs. Keepers spent long, lonely hours tending the lamp, observing the surf for danger, and marking the passage of time with meticulous precision. Many of these keepers left detailed journals, chronicling their lives in solitude. Some entries speak of figures glimpsed in the fog, mysterious lights in the distance, and voices that seemed to emanate from the waves themselves. One keeper wrote of a watcher of the light who never left, a presence so constant that he began to question the boundaries between his own mind and the island's spectral history. Even after the lighthouse was automated and surrounded by the rapid advancement of space exploration, traces of these old stories linger. Security personnel have reported that cameras positioned around the base occasionally capture brief flashes of a figure moving in the mist, never fully solid, often translucent, but consistently pacing near the tower in the direction of the original keeper's watch. At night, the fog seems to thicken in that particular area, creating a visual echo that many describe as a hall of spirits, where shapes appear and vanish like breathing shadows. The wind carries strange, fragmented sounds, the clink of lantern metal, footsteps along wooden platforms long since replaced, and the distant rumble of a voice calling out warnings or names. Mariners and nearby fishermen tell similar tales, even as they navigate the modern channels. Some report seeing a lantern swing from the lighthouse's base, bright and deliberate, only to vanish when approached. Others claim the fog briefly clears to reveal the lighthouse tower glowing unnaturally, the light tracing arcs along the horizon as though signaling phantom vessels from centuries past. Though these sightings are rare, their consistency has created a local legend that Cape Canaveral Lighthouse continues its duty of protection, not only for ships, but for the memories of those who kept the light long ago. Technicians stationed near NASA's facilities also report anomalies that defy technological explanation. Instruments measuring atmospheric pressure, electromagnetic fields, and even basic electrical currents occasionally spike when the fog thickens, often without pattern. The fluctuations are subtle but persistent, and more than one engineer has sworn that the interference feels deliberate, almost intentional, as if some unseen operator is interacting with the modern equipment. Others report sudden chills, a pressure in the air that rises and falls like breathing, and a sense of being observed from all directions at once. Despite these phenomena, the lighthouse is still approached, studied, and maintained, a testament to human curiosity intersecting with enduring mystery. The lighthouse itself seems to straddle time. During the day, it is a landmark, a point of historical interest amid the technological marvels of Cape Canaveral. But as evening descends and the fog rolls in from the Atlantic, the old world asserts itself. Shadows lengthen, colors shift subtly, and the air thickens with a presence that is neither malevolent nor entirely benign. The soft lantern glow at the base, the ghostly pacing, the whispers, and static on modern screens all suggest a continuity of vigilance. A presence tethered to the lighthouse, still performing its centuries-old duty. Cape Canaveral Lighthouse, in this way, exists as a bridge between eras. The lightkeepers may be long gone, their lives replaced by automation and high-tech instruments, but their essence lingers. The lantern glow pacing along the base, the whispers caught in the fog, and the faces forming in static all serve as reminders that some places do not simply yield to progress. Here, the past breathes, weaving seamlessly with the present, ensuring that those who work, visit, or pass by remain aware that the lighthouse watches. Still, even amid rockets, computers, and the roar of human ambition. Mayport Lighthouse, perched near the mouth of the St. Johns River in Jacksonville, Florida, no longer stands in its original glory. Destroyed decades ago, the physical tower has vanished, leaving only fragments of history in old photographs, journals, and the memories of the coastline residents. Yet despite its absence, the lighthouse continues to assert its presence in ways that defy explanation. Locals and visitors alike have reported phenomena that suggest the lighthouse never truly left, that its light, its keeper, and the stories of its past remain tethered to the shores it once guided. On stormy nights, when the winds howl and the waves crash against the jetties, residents claim to see a sweeping beam cutting across the surf. The light behaves as if an actual tower still stands. It arcs methodically, scanning the waters as though warning unseen vessels of danger. Fishermen returning from evening trips have described the beam tracing patterns in the water, illuminating ripples and sandbars that no longer threaten passing ships because the ships themselves are long gone. Yet the effect is undeniable, a beam of clarity piercing darkness, as if the lighthouse continues its eternal vigil. Those who witness it often pause, mesmerized, feeling a strange sense of both reassurance and dread as though the coast is being watched by a sentinel that exists outside the normal bounds of time. Accompanying these spectral lights are reports of a woman in black. Locals say she walks the invisible stairs where the tower once stood, her lantern glowing steadily despite the absence of any physical structure. She appears gracefully, her steps deliberate, her silhouette framed against the storm-darkened sky. Witnesses insist that her light never fades, a ghostly companion to the sweeping beam, maintaining an unbroken rhythm. Some suggest she was a keeper's assistant, a wife, or even a caretaker of the tower's history. Others believe she is a spirit tethered to the lighthouse, ensuring that the light never dies, no matter how far the world has moved on. Historical accounts provide chilling context. Mayport Lighthouse was constructed to guide ships safely through the treacherous currents. At the mouth of the St. Johns River, its keepers endured long, isolated nights, often watching the surf for vessels caught in the unpredictable tides. Journals from the period describe stormy nights when the wind howled like the cries of lost sailors, and the tower's beam was the only line between life and death. One keeper wrote about a mysterious woman who would appear in the lantern room during tempests, her presence so constant that he began to feel that she was the lighthouse itself, embodied. The journals abruptly end with a note about the light that will never die, leaving a haunting suggestion that the figure was more than human, or perhaps bound to the tower by some unbroken duty. Those who encounter the ghostly figure report more than visual phenomena. Sometimes, the air grows inexplicably cold, despite the heat of a Florida storm. Winds carry faint echoes, footsteps on non-existent stairs, the gentle scrape of a lantern swinging, even whispers that sound like fragments of old warnings to sailors. Some claim that the beam of light has a subtle influence on their perception, creating a sense of calm in the chaos of the storm, as though the past is gently guiding them, keeping them safe in ways that modern navigation cannot replicate. Fishermen and boaters are often the first witnesses to these manifestations. Out at sea, when visibility is low and clouds hang thick, they sometimes catch the beam before their instruments detect anything unusual. The light sweeps across waves, pausing briefly as though tracking a phantom ship. The woman in black has been reported several times along the shoreline, moving with deliberate steps that suggest purpose, yet always remaining ethereal. Many who have seen her describe an unearthly beauty, a presence that is simultaneously comforting and sorrowful, a reminder of lives devoted to vigilance, lost to time but not to memory. Even modern technology struggles to interpret the lighthouse's lingering influence. Cameras positioned near the former site often pick up anomalies, faint orbs of light, unexplained shadows, and slight distortions in footage that cannot be attributed to equipment failure. Some researchers visiting the area note instruments behaving strangely, with fluctuations in readings when the beam or the figure is present. These anomalies vanish once the ghostly manifestations fade, leaving only the ambient night and the stormy surf. Yet, the experience leaves witnesses with an enduring sense of mystery. The legend of Mayport Lighthouse persists, not only because of these sightings, but because of the emotional weight they carry. The image of a light that refuses to die, paired with a woman in black, faithfully pacing invisible stairs, resonates deeply with those who hear the stories. It is a reminder that some places maintain a memory so strong that it resists destruction, a presence that lingers, independent of walls, wood, or stone. The lighthouse is gone, but the duty, the vigilance, and the guardianship remain, carried in spectral form across the river mouth and the coastline beyond. Locals also recount encounters during quieter, windless nights. Some report hearing distant creaks and groans, as though the tower itself is flexing in the stormy wind, though nothing stands above the sand. Others claim the beam of light sweeps inland briefly, catching their homes and docks in a ghostly glow, then retreating seaward as if ensuring no one is lost. Children who glimpse her have described the woman in black as shining softly, like she's alive inside the lantern, a presence at once protective and mournful. Maybe lighthouses never truly go dark. Maybe they're more than towers. Maybe they're memories, frozen in glass and salt. Every flicker, every strange beam that cuts through fog, might just be a message from the keepers who refuse to abandon their post. Florida's shores are lined with beauty and mystery. But when the night deepens and you spot a light far off the coast, one that shouldn't be there, remember, not every beacon guides the living. Some guide the lost. And sometimes, when the wind howls and the waves whisper your name, the lighthouse is watching you, too.